brought to you by Newsworks in cooperation with the City of Eau Claire. This program is simulcast on WRFP-LP 101.9 FM.
All right. We will call this meeting to order. Welcome to the August 3rd, 2020 Plan Commission meeting for the City of Eau Claire. Just a couple announcements before we begin. This meeting is being broadcast live by Valley Media Works on Charter Channel 994, WRFP LP 101.9 FM, and online at valleymediaworks.org. The Plan Commission attempts to conduct its public hearings in a relatively informal manner, with the constraint that we must deal with the issues before us in an orderly and businesslike fashion. We give the applicant an opportunity to speak first, and then during public hearing items, we give others, either for or against a given proposal, are each permitted to speak once. We do request that everyone restrict their comments to the issues before us, avoid unnecessary repetition, and be prudent in the use of time. We want to be sure that we have adequate time to review and discuss all items with equal diligence. Since we are using our new format here, hopefully very temporary format, it makes the meeting go a little bit slower, but we will, everyone who wants to speak on a public hearing item will be given an opportunity to do so. We ask that you make sure that your cell phone is off or silent when you are speaking. And we ask that you introduce yourself with your name and address. So with that, we'll begin with a roll call. And I'll begin with the commissioners who are in the room. Commissioner Christofferson?
Here.
Prosnick?
Here.
Seymour?
Here.
Brenholt?
Here.
Granlund?
Here.
Gregert?
Here.
Wolfgram?
Here.
And Obaid?
Here.
Are there any additions or corrections to the meeting from July 20th? Any additions or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, without objection, the minutes are approved. Item number 4 is a time when we have an open public comment period for items that do not appear on this agenda as noted in public hearings or public discussion. I know there are a lot of people here tuning in to speak on some of these items, but we ask if there's any comments that people want to make that are not related to items on our present agenda. And those of you who are logged in online, there should be an opportunity for you there to raise your hand when you want to speak. I see none. We will move on to item number 5, which is a public hearing for recommendation to the City Council for a rezoning and a site plan for a 4-story Phase 2 apartments at the Cannery Trail Residences on Oxford Avenue. Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the Commission. Before you this evening is a request to approve amendments to the General Development Plan and Site Plan for what is now a 4-story Phase 2 for the project known as The Current, formerly known as Cannery Trail Residences. It's item 5 right in the center of your map. Again, off Oxford Avenue, intersected by Maxon. You can see here a little more clearly the area in question. This aerial photo is just a little over 2 years old. If you've driven by there anytime recently, it looks much, much different than this in a lot of places along Oxford Avenue, particularly in the site in question, as Phase 1, which is the yellow square on the north end, is nearing completion. Here's our overall site plan showing just the layout of the two buildings, both Phase 1 again, as noted, already nearing completion. Phase 2 looking to get started with some modifications before you this evening. Here's some renderings, elevations. This shows the south, kind of facing Cameron Street right away, the remainder of that, and the Quick Trip. And then the east side, which is what you would see along Oxford Avenue. And here is the, this was the north and the east, and here is the south and the west. So the south is what you would essentially be seeing facing Quick Trip, and then the west side facing towards the residences to the west of the area. So these got cut off a little bit. I apologize for some of the qualities, some of the pictures. That's my poor PowerPoint formatting, so apologize for that. We'll maybe camp out on this image showing the separation between the two buildings and the southern building. As you can see, showing 3 stories for the most part, and then a fourth, lighter colored portion, kind of projecting on the south end of the building. So more specifically, County Trails Residences, Inc., the applicant here, this evening is proposing an amended general development plan with site plan for Phase 2 multifamily residential project called The Current. The project was granted approval for rezoning with the general development plan back in January of last year. Final site plan in August of last year. The project was successful. It is a competitive application for low-income housing tax credits earlier this year. Again, Phase 1 is immediately north of Phase 2, currently under construction with 71 market rate housing units in a 3-story, about 21,000 square foot footprint building. Phase 2 was originally proposed at 3 stories and 41 housing units with 13,800 square feet in the footprint. The amended plan calls for 4 stories and 43 units. So there's 2 more units, but more spread out and in the overall building, with again kind of that half of a 4th story, as you see there to the left of the screen. 36 of the 43 units would be reserved for residents at that lower end of 30 to 60% of county median income. A unit mix is proposed as 8 studios, 14 one-bedrooms, 15 two-bedrooms, and 6 three-bedrooms. Phase 2 here will have access to 51 vehicle parking stalls and 62 bicycle parking stalls. And again, I'll defer to the applicant to explain a little bit more, but again, with that unit mix, that was in part the reason for kind of adding that additional story to kind of spread out some of those larger units, especially again, the 15 two-bedrooms and 6 three-bedrooms. Setbacks for Phase 2 remain consistent with the original approval, again, hence the going vertical rather than horizontal in this expansion, with 15 feet from the building facade to Oxford Avenue, as you see here in the image, which is on the east, and then 17 feet on the west, 7 feet from the north property line, but 20 feet between the 2 buildings, as you see there to the right of the screen. The applicant provided a narrative regarding the proposed changes to Phase 2, which is attached in the packet. Again, notes that the purpose for the building modification, as I explained, to expand 4 stories on the south side is to fit that range and mix of housing unit types, and also to include the required community space, internally, externally, and again, providing that separation between the 2 buildings and also maintaining that southern setback and property line. So engineering comments and conditions remain unchanged as a result, and the conditions noted in the original file remain as well, and those were included in your packet too. So with that, Again, I would say fairly straightforward, but you know, a change in terms of the building design a little bit, and its overall height, of course, and just how it lays out with the overall project. So I believe that shows most of the images here. This is more that kind of interior courtyard. But we'll probably just stop on this image since it shows it more clearly from that public right of way along Oxford. So with that, we'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission for Mr. Allen?
I have one question. Is the building, does it have an elevator then with the 4 floors?
It's a good question. I did not include any of the layouts here on the floor. I have the agenda packet right here. Thank you. I want to say yes, but I do want to confirm with the drawings that were included in your packet. So they did show the site layout, and I am not. Yes, I am seeing an elevator. It looks like in the lobby area, but I'll defer to the applicant just to clarify that. But there are staircases, stairwells at both ends, east and west. But I want to say there is an elevator now as well. But I'll defer to the applicant to clarify. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission for Mr. Allen?
All right. Thank you.
I see none. Thank you. And Mr. Warner, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Do you have any comments?
Yeah, so I tried to chat on the WebEx thing. I said there is going to be an elevator to the 4th floor. I have nothing. Scott Allen, like always, he did a great job explaining the overview and then the plan changes that we're putting forth to the Plan Commission today. One thing I would maybe want to say is, you know, the building square feet, you know, went from 62,000 to around 71,000 square feet. We've figured out that, you know, even if it was 41 units, it was going to be very tight within, you know, fitting all 41 units within 62,000 square feet. So we couldn't go south, we couldn't go north, east, or west. So we decided to go up to the 4th floor and have a partial 4th floor to fit the units comfortably. We would have been able to fit all of the units at the very minimum square feet for each of the WIDA set-asides, but we didn't want to have them, you know, crammed in there. So this gave us more room to make the apartment homes a little bigger, more marketable, and more comfortable for the residents living in a, you know, a fairly dense multifamily building.
Okay. Commissioner Christopherson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm wondering, with this change in the design for Phase 2, do the floor plans or for the individual apartments stay the same?
Yeah, so the floor plans actually are designed to have more square feet for each of them. The first floor is primarily 3 bedrooms. How the 9% affordable tax credits work within these workforce housing communities is they like to have the ability for families to be on the first floor. So we put, you know, they recommend that there's lockable doors on the exterior and walk up stairs for those 3 bedrooms on the first floor. And I think there's 8 of them, and all of them are located on the first floor. So the floor plans are somewhat consistent on the studio 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms, given what Phase 1. We're opening Phase 1 in a couple months, but there is going to be 3 bedrooms in Phase 2. Does that answer your question?
It does, to a point. I'm wondering just a little more directly, do the 1 and 2 bedrooms have the same layout in Phase 1 and Phase 2?
they're going to be pretty similar because of the design of the building. It's kind of like a miniature version of phase one. It's a reverse horseshoe facing north instead of facing south. A lot of the unit floor plans are going to be pretty consistent throughout both of the phases, but they are going to be, just because of the design of phase two being somewhat different than phase one, they are going to have a little bit different floor plans. But we can send you those. We sent those to Scott. I don't know if he shared those in the packet with you, the printout, but we can definitely send those to everyone after the meeting, and you can look at them.
Thank you.
If I may interject, Mr. Chair, yes, Mr. Warner, the floor plans were included in the packet, but we did not include everything from the first phase for comparison,
Mm-hmm.
just the site plan, so.
Okay.
Right.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions from the commission for Mr. Warner? I see none. Thank you, Mr. Warner.
You're welcome. Thanks, everyone.
Is there a motion on this? I'm sorry. This is a public hearing. And so if there's anyone here to speak on this item, you should have available to you an ability to raise your hand, and then it shows up on my screen and I can call on you. There is one person who's called in by phone, and they are identified to me just as call-in user number 3. So I will unmute that individual. If you're calling in by phone, could you identify yourself?
Hi, Kevin Williams from Cedar Corporation. Just here is part of the person, the consultant that did the civil plans for this development.
Oh, okay. Did you have anything to add?
I do not.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Anyone else log in to speak on this item regarding the development at Cannery Trail? I see none. So now I can call and see if there is a motion to approve. Commissioner Christopherson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move for the approval for this, this plan on the.
Okay. And Commissioner Obaid.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
I just wanted to comment.
Yes.
I just wanted to say congratulations to Capital Group on getting approved for the tax credits, and I just want to really commend you guys. I think it's a beautiful building. It's a huge addition to that neighborhood. It's just going to be such a nice, breath of fresh air down there, and so I just really wanted to commend you guys on that. And I did look at the, looking through the floor plans and stuff. I think it's really nice, and I love how you incorporated the 3 bedrooms, because it does kind of seem to be that there's a shortage of 3-bedroom apartments on the market. So it's nice to see that you incorporated that. And the reason I was asking about the elevator earlier was I was just curious, like if, regardless of like if you were able to go up and down stairs, would you have access to every floor? And an elevator is really awesome to know that that's going to be in there, because it doesn't matter which floor you're on, you'd have you'd be able to access it regardless of disability or anything along the lines of that. So I just really wanted to say congratulations on your tax credits, and this looks like a beautiful building, and I can't wait to see it all done.
Good. Thank you. Commissioner Wolfgram.
Well, I just wanted to add that phase 2 is long anticipated, and I'm very excited for our city residents who will be able to soon call the current home. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Christopherson.
My mistake.
Oh, okay. Anyone else have any discussion items on this from the Plan Commission? I see none, so we will call the roll. Commissioner Christopherson?
Aye.
Prosnick?
Aye.
Seymour?
Aye.
Brenholt?
Aye.
Granlund?
Aye.
Greggert?
Aye.
Wolfgram,
Aye.
Obaid,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. That item passes. Congratulations. Item number 6 is a public hearing for recommendation to the City Council for rezoning and a site plan for a 5-story mixed-use development from Merge Urban Development at the Railroad Street lot. Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the commission, and those also observing online and elsewhere. Before you this evening, agenda item number 6, not far from the previous agenda item, on the north side of the Eau Claire River, what is affectionately known as the Railroad Lot, which is 100 North Farwell Street. Galloway Street is to the north, and it's bounded by Barstow on the west and Farwell on the east. Shown a little bit more specifically here. This is a city-owned property, city parking lot with a history connected to the railroad lines through this part of downtown Eau Claire. Get into that a little bit more later. Again, what's before you this evening is a request to approve a rezoning from its current P public designation to CBDP, which is Central Business District with a planned development, and for a site plan for a 5-story mixed-use development at this location. The applicant has referred to this project as Andante, so if you hear or see that name around, that is in reference to this project and the building in particular. Certainly, as we know, the current use is a public parking lot. The comprehensive plan does just identify this as Central Business District. And with that, Bolton & Mank, Inc. is acting as the engineer on the project, and it will be presenting here after staff comments. Along with the rest of the team with Merge Urban Development, those noted in your staff report, including Slingshot Architecture, who provided a number of the renderings here for your consideration this evening. So with that, again, the applicant, in coordination with the City of Eau Claire, is requesting approval, rezoning, and site plan for a mixed-use development project, single building, located between, again, Barstow on the west and Farwell on the east, along the north side of the Eau Claire River. The city's recreational trail and greenway does extend along the south side of the project and connects up into it or through it. And again, it runs east-west along the south side of the proposed project. Again, the parcel is currently owned by the City of Eau Claire. I noted in the staff report approximately 12 months ago. It was actually going on 18 months now. City prepared a request for proposals, is actually March of 2019, to seek applications to redevelop the existing parking lot into this mixed-use development, or a mixed-use development. This proposal was one of 4 that was submitted, and was moving forward with the purchase and development agreement, memorandum of understanding prior to that, in order to get to this point for you this evening. And that was with Merge Urban Development Group. The proposed development includes approximately 8,600 square feet of commercial space on the first floor. Site plan as a whole. Again, primarily showing the first floor layout, just with the 4 floors of residential above. The first floor would include restaurant on the west end, service businesses, and retail. These 76 units in 54,000 square feet on the upper 4 floors. The unit mix includes 28 studios, 32 one-bedrooms, 16 two-bedrooms. In addition, a lower or basement level will provide parking for 41 vehicles. Project also includes parking for 32 vehicles, surface parking, as you see there to the north. And the developer would enter into agreement with the city to lease another 25 spaces in the North Barstow parking ramp located directly to the west. 16 bicycle surface parking spaces are proposed, along with 40 interior bicycle parking spaces. The building is contemporary in design with a variety of exterior building materials, colors, and textures. It includes multiple windows overlooking the river. Materials include a mix of brick masonry, white cement board, vertical corrugated metal panels, balconies with wood slat guardrails, and lower level retail awnings. I'll show a little bit more specifically what that looks like here with this primary rendering that you may have seen even prior to the packet. The building also features an outdoor patio on the west side of the building. You can see a little bit more clearly here. Again, the west paved area being the patio. Public riverfront promenade or walkway along the south side of the building abutting the greenway. You can see there with the trees and being the circles there. This is the landscape plan just to show some of the greenery and hardscape along with the building itself. Here's that pedestrian promenade or walkway along the south end of the building, south side of the building, with those trees that you saw circled in the overview plan. It also included a grilling and seating area for building residents and the public in the southeast part of the property. Sorry, I have to jump back and forth here quite a bit. You can see that to the, again, kind of center to the right a little bit. There's a little notch out where it kind of connects down into the walkway, the trail that is, I should say, the actual river trail. And extensive landscaping, as you can see here around the building. A lot of hatching that you see in the drawing here is more the ground cover, shrubs and greenery, perennials and such. So although not specifically shown kind of in the traditional circular fashion, a lot of the shaded areas outside of the parking and the patios and walkways would be landscaped. Shows that a little bit more clearly here. The trees on the south side. This is the patio, proposed patio on the west side of the building. And this is the south lobby entrance, kind of to the middle, not far from that kind of walking and kind of the stairway with the grilling patio. And again, there's the name, the Andante name identified there for the building itself. Again, at 5 stories, the building is approximately 65 feet in height. Nearby buildings range from kind of a tall 2-story, the Chamber of Commerce building to the east. I'll jump back. Sorry, I have to keep kind of jumping around here. The Chamber of Commerce building to the east, 4-story office buildings to the west, including RCU and JAMP buildings, along with the 3-story residential buildings to the northwest and 3-story parking garage immediately to the west of the site. I forgot to mention the library to the southeast as well. And then also southwest would be the Haymarket Landing project as well, similar in scale. I mention that in particular because I know that was a question or concern was raised at the Waterways and Parks Commission too. And again, I should note that they have recommended their approval on a vote of 4-3, again, for you here this evening as well. From that meeting and from that staff report, I did include Senior Planner Pat Ivory's comments related to that, I should say, in reference to the waterways plan and its connection with the greenway and the trail there as well. So happy to answer any questions more specific to that. Site does also want to mention, again, provide for that covered outdoor seating area at the northwest corner of the property. So we can jump back to that drawing. Whoops, sorry. That's this. It's a standalone location which would allow for relocated and expanded outdoor dining for at least one restaurant along Galloway Street, Galloway Grill. Trash enclosures are located between this area and the Galloway Street businesses. Property also continues to host 3 public art installations as a part of the Eau Claire Sculpture Tour, and pedestrian connections and walkways are provided throughout the site for both public and building use. Deputy City Engineer Lee Ness, I believe, is on the line as well. If there are questions about any of the engineering items in the staff report. Economic Development Manager Aaron White is also on the line too. If there are questions about some of the kind of development review process up to this point, he was involved with the purchase and development agreement as it went through those processes with City Council, a review of the RFP submittals last year and such as well. So both of them are available as needed. I do have a lot more to go through, if you don't mind, but wanted to kind of just highlight some of the items from the staff report. I'll kind of park here just for now because, again, as you know, there have been a number of comments and questions from neighbors and the public regarding the outdoor spaces related to the neighboring businesses to the north of this property. I'd say kind of park here, but we can also bounce back to the site plan, overall site plan as well. But again, this is the kind of that northwest corner of the property. It's a grassed area now. If you go walk along Barstow Street, you can kind of see this open area. And this is the proposal, is to include this outdoor dining area that can be accessed in lieu of the existing patios currently at those businesses. One thing I did want to mention, again, I provided to everyone of the commission just before the meeting. Thank you for your patience in assembling all that, but a timeline of the process up to this point. Not to get into every line item of that, but I do have that available if you have questions about that as those come up. I did want to mention that this kind of whole process did start back in December of 2018 when there was a discussion with City Council regarding downtown redevelopment and included the railroad lot as possible excess land. In February of 2019, that's when the City Council did declare the railroad lot as excess land. RFP was released in early March. 4 proposals were received end of March. Staff reviewed those in early April, and then over the next few months, there were discussions with the selected proposer, and that is Merge Urban Development, which before you hear this evening. So that was end of August 2019, so last year. This MOU was finally executed. And again, conversations, letters, emails and such with neighboring property owner and landlord to the north. And again, conversations then up to end of January when the City Council had a discussion on the draft proposal, which is again prior to what you see here tonight. And then again, additional discussions with the neighboring property owner through February and into March. And then the final development agreement was signed by Merge Urban Development in mid-March and then went to City Council for their approval of the development purchase agreement March 24th. So a little over 4 months ago, and then getting to this point here before you for your consideration and recommendation tonight. I did want to note too that public hearing notices were mailed to the neighboring property owners a little over 2 weeks ago, and this shows those that received that. There were also the public hearing signage that was placed on the property just about 2 weeks ago. In fact, I believe to the day, 2 weeks ago. And then on July 22nd, as noted in the staff report, Waterways and Parks Commission reviewed and recommended approval of the proposal that's before you this evening. There were a number of questions that did come up even just today from fellow Plan Commission members. Some of those I did want to highlight specifically tonight, and again, can answer those as they come up as need be related to the project. A number of those I'll defer to the applicant about, but now we'll just kind of park on the site plan itself a little bit. You can see to the north, kind of the top left of the screen here, is the that outdoor patio area. Again, it's just shown in kind of the pad there, not the kind of pergola enclosure that's proposed. And you can see the general location for the dumpster as well. I did want to note that did communicate with Health Department today, and that is not anything that would be a code concern. That was one question that did come up. That was, again, interesting question that we don't normally review or consider, but there was not a specific code issue related to the location of the dumpster with regards to that outdoor patio area. But what was noted, obviously, that needs to go through, needs to be picked up weekly, can't cause odor and things of that sort. So there's standard health department requirements, but nothing special because of the location related to the outdoor dining. Some of the other things too, you can see some of this is shifted around. I can pull up, the original preliminary site plan that was submitted with their RFP last year and presented as a part of the development agreement to the city council. But that has, again, shifted a little bit, but has not really modified much on the north end. Has modified the location of the underground parking access. Now it's exclusively off of Farwell Street. Again, trying to make and take advantage of and make room for public space on that south end of the building. So in so doing, starts shifting things northward, requiring a 20-foot wide access drive lane for fire service and EMS purposes. And then again, still providing that one-way in and out for the parking. Also does help with kind of squeezing in some of the parking that you see here in terms of the surface parking, and still keeping some separation between the parking and the businesses to the north. A couple other things too. I know, again, a lot of the public comments have centered around the outdoor seating, outdoor patios of the existing businesses. Those were and are located on the city-owned property. There was a lease agreement when Galloway Grill either expanded or built their outdoor patio area in 2009. It was a 5-year agreement with 5 one-year extensions, and therefore then expired the end of 2019, so 10 years later. So that did expire at the end of this last year. So the outdoor seating, outdoor patio areas are still located on city property, but not with the benefit of any current lease agreement as it stands. But again, city is not moving forward with enforcing the removal of those or anything like that at this point. Certainly not. And speaking with the applicant, I'll defer to them in terms of their timeline, but very likely would not be impacting any of those patio seating areas yet this season. So that's an important thing to note as well. Should also note that, as you know, sidewalk cafe permits, that process has been expedited and expanded to allow for the social distancing and just spreading things out and taking advantage of the outdoor dining opportunities in downtown specifically. So that would be an opportunity afforded to these businesses or any business in the area as well. So that's one thing to consider, is possibility of additional dining opportunities on the north side along Galloway Street as well. So just want to make note in particular that a number of those items have been under discussion, under consideration for a while. Again, even with the discussion of the lease agreement late last year. So the patios have been one of those items in the mix in terms of this development proposal for quite some time. So with that, a number of other questions have come up. I did want to make sure, and I think I will close with this in case there, but again, unless there are any questions. Actually, 2 different things. One related to the affordable housing component, and 2 regarding parking. I'll start with parking just briefly. Again, it was not of great detail in your staff report. I apologize for that. So I did want to make sure that we are all kind of the same page in terms of parking requirements and numbers and such. The residential parking with the 15% reduction for the transit and bicycles would be 78 spaces required. The restaurant, without knowing the actual seating capacity there, again, it's kind of a white box shell that you're seeing before you. We then look at the square footage of that, and that's, I would say, more restrictive, but has a higher number of parking spaces required because it treats it more like a open kind of dining area rather than fixed seats. And that would be 61 spaces, so that's quite high for that size of restaurant space. Again, it may be much lower depending on the actual number of fixed seats. Other commercial throughout there, without knowing all the specific users or if it's office or retail, the smaller spaces in the middle have been identified as a micro retail kind of environment, although the applicant described that a little bit more in detail. But that actually, with the reductions, is only 7 parking spaces. However, as a total, you're looking at about 146 spaces. Again, it's on the higher end. It could be lower than that based on some of those, final end users, as well as that restaurant seating. With that, they provided 32 surface parking spaces, 41 underground vehicle parking spaces, and they're leasing 25 off-site, as noted from the city in the North Barstow ramp, which is 98 total being provided. So therefore, at a maximum, they'd be requesting a 48 space reduction, which is not too far off from even the previous agenda item, where they had made a larger request for some of the reduction in parking, in part related again to its location, also the tenant and the tenant and residential mix would play into that as well. And part of that too, again, looking at the housing mix, they've been using a term called attainable housing. Urban Land Institute usually utilizes that term. It's not necessarily workforce housing. It's not necessarily low to moderate income housing. It's not low income housing tax credit type housing, but it's a mix, and it's called attainable. From what they proposed with their original proposal would be a mix of 21 units of affordable housing at 50% of county median income, 41% of the units at 21% of units affordable at 50%, 41% of the units affordable at the actual county median income, and 81% at 80%. So it's kind of a mix, and that's a little bit different than some of those that we've been seeing lately, even again, the previous agenda item where it was, X% on this one block. So they're looking at a variety of that kind of housing mix. And again, they provided some of that financing information and exhibits and materials that were provided as a part of their purchase and development agreement. So I included that as well in some materials provided to you earlier today. Again, can reference back to that if needed. And you didn't think I could keep talking like this through a mask, did you? I'm not losing my breath at all. So I must be getting used to the mask after all. But can certainly drill down even further. There are quite a number of questions I tried to compile. I appreciate everybody in the commission that was able to send those in advance of the meeting so staff could gather the information from a lot of different departments, pieces together. And again, with that, just really need to emphasize that this is suitable land for redevelopment. I included some aerial photos even shared with you earlier here, thanks to senior planner Pat Ivory, who's in the audience as well, from 1975 and 1980, which even to me does not seem that long ago, but it's 45 and 40 years ago. And even then, there was quite a bit of parking and excess parking provided in this area. In 1975, the railroad line still ran through there. 1980, it was more, as you see that drive aisle, it was Railroad Street at that point. So again, it has evolved over the years, but has retained its kind of parking use over the years as well. And with that, too, I should note kind of its current use through the parking study that was done last year, which again, the kind of more broad presentation of that from our engineering department's been delayed because of our current situation. It was planned to be presented and announced in late March, and then things happened. Even then, they were showing some pretty underutilized use of that parking lot. So again, just want to emphasize that, city council, staff, development community have, worked through this over the last 18 months to get to this point. And, things such as identifying excess land, requesting proposals, vetting 4 very good proposals, working with this preferred proposal, walking that through with city council, having discussions with them, modifying the TID number 8, where this is located. That even went before you back in January, February of this year as well. So it's gone through a lot of different steps and stages to get to this point, and just wanted to make note of that because I know it seemed to have come as a surprise to a number of people very recently, and that's unfortunate to hear that because we have taken a lot of steps to get to this point and try to make it as publicly available and noticeable as possible. Understanding though, it's been over 18 months, so just keeping everyone's attention and keeping that in front, especially in light of everything going on lately, is difficult. So can certainly understand that it's not front and center and easy to keep in mind and keep everyone's attention on it for that amount of time just to get to this discussion that we have here tonight. But also want to, just philosophically always need to mention that in the planning world, this is why we have these conversations. This is why we have this kind of opportunity for a public hearing, is to have a public hearing, to have public input, public commentary from anybody and everybody who has a vested interest in Eau Claire's redevelopment downtown and the neighborhood in particular. So that's why we're having this meeting. So thank you for your time, and I will certainly try to answer any questions if there are any.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the commission for Mr. Allen? Commissioner Christopherson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Allen, I wonder, there are just a couple of things that I would, because there's so much comparison to now and future, the patio that is proposed on the development, do we have an idea of how much seating there is on that outdoor patio?
A very good question. This gives, I think, a fairly good scaled representation, this image here, of that. Again, it's one of those things where it is difficult because of spacing nowadays, and this was drawn, pre-COVID, so I would defer to the applicant to share a little bit more specifically what that would look like.
And this is the one that's outside of the new building, but not the one that is next to Galloway Grill?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Thank you. So this area in particular, yes.
Do we know about?
This would certainly, I would say certainly, this to me appears to be larger than the west side patio adjacent to the proposed building.
And both of those would be available for walk-by diners, perhaps, if they were bringing their lunch or whatever, they could sit outside in either of those spaces, do you think?
I would defer to the applicant on that. I know, again, that south side promenade, for lack of a better term, is definitely, that's intentionally open to the public along the building and connecting to the river trail and such as well. That was a very important part of the discussions, as again, the city council as well, is to make sure that there's still a lot of public interaction and connection to this building. It's not just, quote, selling it to a private developer to enhance their own development, but actually have public interaction around and in front of that building. Now, in terms of the outdoor patio area here, again, I would defer to them. It's not specifically carved out as an easement per se, but again, it is part of city-owned property currently. But yeah, all that to say, I'll defer to them to kind of what they envision that used to be, that connection to be, and whether the outdoor patio on the west side here would be more considered to be open to the public. Again, I don't see it. It hasn't been presented as fenced off, per se. It may need some more rigid structure if there's going to be alcohol use and things like that. So, yeah, exactly. don't go based solely on what you see here, because this is just kind of a general rendering of what that space would feel like, and not necessarily an end use per se.
May I have one follow-up?
Yes.
Would you mind making the comparison also for the number of diagonal parking spots? That appears to be about as many spots as there are in that upper part of that current lot.
All compared to
Yeah,
what are there now?
the top lot.
There's 60, I'm looking back at the other planners in the room, 64 plus or minus spaces, I believe, in the railroad lot. So
Okay.
again,
So it's the
they're
30,
preserving
32
about
would
half of
be the
that.
top. Okay, thank you.
so yeah, plus or minus.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Greggert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and a big thank you to Mr. Allen for tackling all the questions that were coming your way, and an excellent presentation tonight. My question actually goes back to a document that was sent out to the commission right before this meeting started, one that I requested based on something that I saw and reviewed in detail at a city council meeting in March when we approved a development and purchase agreement. The only thing that we had in front of us at that time was really this document in terms of explaining, preliminarily the layout of the building on the land and the relationship to the existing buildings. And I'm not sure if that's a document you have available to put up on the screen, but the very last page of that document, which was approved in March, has a site plan, very preliminary. And obviously what we have in front of us now is a final site plan, at least with the intent of being approved or modified by this commission. So I do have it in front of me, and what I've noticed is there are some relatively significant changes that I wanted to ask about. And maybe the applicant will be able to answer some of them too, but some of the big things that I noticed that were different is there's no longer a bank drive-through in the proposal, kind of on the east end of the building. And then this site plan fleshes out, a bit more as to what would be in the future development site on the northwest, which in this case, it appears it would be an outdoor patio rather than a building. And then it also shows the parking being not as close to the existing buildings to the north, which would lead one to believe that maybe there was a way to even keep the existing patios in their locations. So just kind of wanted to bring this up, and technically what you have on the screen is even slightly different than what I have in front of me that was sent via email, but it's pretty close. So maybe the applicant would be able to speak to some of these changes, but I just kind of wanted to point this out, that the last time that the city council saw something, it didn't, it was, a different project, but, there's obviously been some changes. So I wonder if you could explain that, Mr. Allen, a little bit, as how we got to this point.
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner Greggert. Yeah, what is above shown on the screen now is what was the very initial submittal in response to the RFP. And even this does show, like you're saying, some kind of generalized separation from the buildings to the north, again, prior to knowing more specifically where some of the lot lines were. As you can see here, it was even estimating the lot lines going through the building, and that was not necessarily 100% accurate either at that time. So, through the additional work that's happened over the last 18 months, it's you better identify the lot lines and grades, and actual, locations for the underground parking, removal of the bank drive-through, as you mentioned. But even too, it's hard to see the south end of this picture too clearly, but thank you. That whole area has been expanded as well, thereby shifting everything northward too. But yes, I'm certainly happy to defer to the applicant to share a little bit more specifically kind of how things evolved even in the last couple months. But that's a good point that this was last March, April, and then in August with the MOU being executed, then the next 6 months or so ended up with a new preliminary drawing, and then that evolved the last 4 months, 4 to 5 months into what you see before you this evening. And as we talk here, I will try to find what was sent out, which shows the kind of the in between now. So you have the version in front of you tonight for consideration, and then this original version, and then as you're referring to the one that was provided more specifically as an exhibit to that purchase and development agreement back in March. So I'll find that.
Thank you. I think.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Wolfgram. Oh, I'll get you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Allen, and forgive me if I lost the response to my question in your presentation. What is the city's response to the small businesses in the area who have expressed great concern regarding the preservation of their parking in the lot in relation to the survival of their small businesses?
That too, I don't want to kick all these specifically to the applicant, but I know that through the purchase and development agreement, development, for lack of a better term, kind of the creation of that, there were conversations, as noted, kind of in the timeline. Last November, there was a meeting with the neighboring property owner to discuss that because, again, and in fact, that was preceded by a letter from the city attorney in late October, kind of acknowledging that that lease of the patio spaces would be expiring the end of December. And again, that was really, I think, when in earnest a number of the conversations occurred and began anyway, regarding the future of the patios and related to this project. So with that, again, I'm deferring to the applicant only in that I know they're trying to take into account the existing patios, the fact that the lease has expired, and that there's a transition here to different proposed arrangement for the outdoor space, and in so doing, identifying this larger outdoor seating area immediately to the west of at least one of the properties. Again, I'll defer to them in terms of access and use, and the fact that I know this they are still considering some final layouts and access points related to that outdoor seating. So what you see here on the screen is not, I would say, 100% accurate, but just not very detailed in terms of that final on the ground layout of what you would see if you were to walk out the back doors of those businesses and try to access some of that outdoor seating. So again, I'll defer to them to give a little bit more information on that. And as I noted, again, last October or November, there were discussions. The lease expired end of December. And then February, March, there was some additional discussion, again, in advance of that purchase and development agreement in order to get some clarification and formal decisions made with the outdoor area before going to council. That was not able to be completed, so now kind of handing that baton to the developer and the applicant for you this evening to find some final concluding layout that hopefully they can share a little bit more specifics on here with their presentation.
Thank you. Commissioner Seymour.
Thank you. Mr. Allen, could you clarify for me, I guess I might be a little confused on this, the parking lot on the site plan, are those spots for the public or is it for this development?
The surface parking?
Yes.
That is for, yes, it's for both.
For both?
Right. So it's not necessarily exclusively for, the businesses or the building owner, but again, I may defer to them in terms of what their expectations were with that. But they are counting those towards their required parking.
Okay.
But I don't believe, they'll be, signed as such necessarily.
Right, but it's not public parking, or?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
You don't know what to call
I don't know
it.
if there's been a decision made on that in terms of, it's not necessarily going to be metered per se, if that's what you're saying. I don't think that was the intent, but again, I might defer to them in terms of what their expectation was with that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And what Mr. Petrie is showing on the screen here is what Commissioner Gregert was referring to, kind of the modified version of the original proposal. And again, showing a little bit more of that public space to the south, and then again, therefore shifting things more northward, turning literally the parking to be angled parking, still keeping that bank drive-through, but again, because the bank, from what the applicant has noted, is no longer a tenant, that changed a lot of that layout concept as you see there. You can see even the parking entrance, trying to take that away from that kind of middle of the building and pulling that to the side off of North Farwell to make it, a lot more similar to what you saw with the original submittal, where they had that access just flipped, but off of North Farwell as well. So the red there, again, showing some of that kind of easement area and access, which again is a good point. Providing that easement access to those existing businesses and the existing building to connect through the parking and to that outdoor patio site. So that wasn't as clearly identified on the drawing that you had in your packet. So thank you, Commissioner Gregert, to kind of reference back to this, because this does show a little bit more clearly the anticipated kind of easement access that will be granted to the building. So it's important to note, not simply cutting off those existing businesses from this property, still allowing access and connections through.
Thank you. Any other questions from the commission? Commissioner Gregert.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Allen, for bringing this. I guess if you could maybe bring that back up, Mr. Petrie, that previous image. I do think this one is very important. I guess the other difference that I see is, in addition to just seeing, access to the existing building in that red space there, this is really what we saw most previously at City Council. So I was expecting something a little bit more along the lines of this. But the other part that I wanted to ask about was this future development site in the northwest. It's really treated as a separate, project or parcel almost. But my understanding is that it's going to be owned by merge under this proposal now. I'm just, at that time it wasn't really clear what was going to go there. And now it appears that it's being proposed as a patio for Galloway Grill rather than its existing location. Is that correct?
I'm trying to see where we're pointing at. You have the pointer there? Yes. So again, it's still identified as a future development site, but again, temporarily again, temporary can mean a lot of things, but temporarily would be that outdoor patio area. So that too, again, I may defer to the applicant with regards to kind of their future long-term expected use. I know that was a concern as well that I've heard, is that, you know, it's not a long-term permanent use as an outdoor patio space, that it is at some point going to be replaced with, you know, potential development in terms of you know, a building or other structure there. So, you know, that has changed in terms of a current use, but as you see here, still future development. Did that answer your question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions from the commission? I have a couple. I have, we all received a lot of information, you know, input from the public about this development. And that prompted me to do a little bit of background work on it as well over the last couple of hours, actually, because I got the emails today. But in terms of the TID 8, do you know how many years are left on that TID?
I do not.
Okay. I know the TID isn't an issue that we're making a decision on today, but part of the information I received was that this would have reduce the debt on that TID by $1.2 million. Does that sound about right?
The number I was given by our finance director was, I want to say, $1.28 million. And again, that's helps pay for costs already incurred, so kind of paying back the TID as we go along here.
So those aren't planned costs, those are costs that we've already paid.
And again, it helps pay that back. I don't know what that exact number is, but that.
And then there were 4 proposals turned in?
Correct.
For the RFP? And was one of them from the landowner to the north?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, Investment Realty?
Correct.
Okay. And we received a copy of that proposal this afternoon. That proposal actually would have torn down the buildings on Galloway Street, including Galloway Grill. Is that right?
It would have redeveloped the entire block.
The entire block.
Yeah, from the river to Galloway.
So all those buildings would have been taken down?
Correct. In, I believe, 3 phases.
Okay. And the other one has to do with, and you've talked extensively about the number of meetings and public information that's been put out on this. But that RFP was, so the RFPs were requested in March of last year.
Yes.
And by November of last year, it looks like they had all been received. Is that right?
End of March.
End of March.
Right.
Oh, I'm
so
sorry.
It was about it was a 1 month, I want to say 3 weeks or so, plus or minus. So it
So
was
the council
released, early March and then end of March.
Okay.
It was
So the city council had a discussion about the development and the purchase agreement in March of this year. And they approved the
That was
purchase
when
agreement?
so yes, that's when they approved the development purchase agreement,
Okay.
where you saw the drawing with the red hatching that Commissioner Gregor was referring to.
Okay. So presumably the other participants in the RFP would have been, of course, we can't say for sure, but you would think they'd be following along what was going on with it.
Presumably, I do know one of the submitters also has looked at partnering with proposal for the liner site as well. So they may have been connected. Again, the property owner to the north was communicated with several times over the last year. So.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions from the commission for Mr. Allen? All right.
If I may?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, again, just so we don't get all confused between the 3 different site plans, that I've shown here tonight. I did want to, make note that what you see before you is what's under consideration. So
Right.
the other two, the first one was the RFP, just, to show a very general concept of what could happen there. The one that was presented in March with that development agreement, the one with the red hatching, it was kind of, again, that intermediary step, just to show general blocking and types of uses and access and things of that sort, and not, again, necessarily a final, foot by foot of layout as well. So just want to make sure that, everybody's comparing and discussing and reviewing the same thing. So really what's before you tonight is this more final version that Mr. Petrie has up on the screen. I just want to make sure that was the case, was confirmed as well.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Greggert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Allen, maybe this is also a question for Mr. White, but I understand that this proposal is in the context of a number of different entities that would maybe have a position on this over the last couple of years. And I guess I was wondering, as far as Downtown Eau Claire Incorporated and the North Barstow bid, how have those entities been involved in the railroad lot proposals over time, and reviewing any impacts on the neighborhood? Has that been something that has been on the agendas of these business organizations or downtown development organizations? Because I didn't really see anything like that on the timeline.
That's a good question. I know Mr. White has had conversations, or tried to have conversations, with some neighboring business owners, but I believe he is on the line as well and could answer that question.
Yep. Mr. White?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Both Downtown Eau Claire Inc. and the North Barstow bid, which this property does lie within the North Barstow bid district, had been apprised the ongoing process. We gave them a view of the potential facility when MERG was first selected as the developer to develop the railroad site. We gave them periodic updates on what the status of the project was, where we're at within negotiation of the MOU, where we were at within negotiation of the development agreement. So we kept them appraised of what was going on and moving forward. Didn't continue updating fresh images. What they would have seen would have been what was presented, the very initial concept early on, but the organizations had been kept appraised of what was going on. Most were pretty excited about it. They saw some good opportunity for development, housing that is of a type that's still needed. There's a wide variety of housing that is still needed in the community, and organizations were very supportive of the project. Communications in general, we started communicating with the property owner to the north. We connected their contact information to the developer, and the developer sent the initial concept back in November of 2019. There have been multiple emails, mailed correspondence, and phone calls with the property owner, trying to gather input on what the needs of the tenants might be, letting them know that this development is moving forward. So we made best effort to keep them apprised of what was happening as well.
Okay. The property owner is Investment Realty. That's who you're talking about?
Correct.
And do they have a representative on the bid board?
I believe they do, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. White? Oh, all right. Thank you, Mr. White.
Absolutely.
Any other questions for Mr. Allen? Commissioner Seymour.
Thank you. Mr. Allen, is there an aerial picture of this? Can you find that? Yes, right there. Is there a vacant lot in between, I'm trying to remember, keep going north. right in there. No, in between the buildings on Galloway. Is that a vacant lot? I believe it is.
Is it? Okay. Okay, yes.
And I would assume it's owned by the owner that owns the other buildings. I don't know if we can find that out. It seems like there's some space there for some potential outdoor seating is all I was thinking about.
Sure, it is owned, okay. Yep, the ownership is the same.
And also, if I remember correctly, it seems like the sidewalk on Galloway Street is wider than normal sidewalks downtown. Am I dreaming that, or would you have any information on that?
We can pull up any other images, but would Deputy City Engineer EMS know that answer? Sorry? 13, okay, thank you. 13 feet wide, yes, so it's a little bit wider than typical.
So there's potential for some outdoor seating, perhaps out there.
Yes, yeah.
I'm just thinking of alternative places
Right,
here.
and again, without knowing all of the variations of liquor licenses and other things with those different businesses, there are some restrictions for that outdoor seating for the sidewalk cafe. So I don't want anybody to presume that it's kind of a free-for-all, that anybody can just sign up and go do that. So
Sure.
I don't
Okay.
want anybody to think that's the case though either. So.
Sure. Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all I had.
Okay, any more questions for Mr. Allen? All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will hear from the developer next. Ms. Schroeder, are you here to talk about this development? Hello, Rose Schroeder?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Very good. Yes, this is, first of all, thank you, city staff, for that information and background and overview you provided. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I'm Rose Schroeder with Bolton and Mink. We are the partner to this project that is working on the engineering and primarily the site work. I've got one of my colleagues also on the line in case there are questions. Also, representatives from Slingshot Architecture are on, as well as Joy Hahnemann and Brent Dahlstrom from Merge Urban Development. So if I may, I think staff did a thorough job covering many things. And I'd like to run through a bit of an overview, and just given all the information that staff was able to provide, I'll probably focus a lot of my initial remarks just on clarifying and kind of walking through the site plan and some of that evolution. And then we will transition to a little bit of the architecture specifically for the project. And then I'll ask Merge to talk a little bit specifically about the housing and commercial component. So if we could go to the next slide, please. So we've already heard some discussion about sort of the concepts and evolution of this project. So this should look somewhat familiar to one of the images that you just saw, but I just wanted to use it to introduce the project overall. I know you've gotten lots of information in your packet. This is a 76 unit residential mixed commercial project. We all know the location overlooking the river. Really excited about it for fitting into the overall fabric of this area and some of the other redevelopment efforts that have been going on. To the point of some of the comments earlier, this site plan has in fact modified as we have gotten more survey information, more elevation, utility location types of information, gotten more details on some of the particular city development standards and geometrics that we need to work and accommodate. So the first, probably most notable change that was pointed out earlier is there's no longer a bank shown as the tenant on the east side of this building, and so that can eliminate the need sort of for this drive-through concept that was initially shown. That does a few things. It helps out tremendously with being able to move the below-grade parking ramp entry from sort of this a little bit challenging, what used to be sort of more in the middle of the building. It helps us with grade and elevation to be able to get down to that parking elevation at a reasonable level and have that layout of that lower parking deck be more efficient. A few of the things that have also caused some movement, particularly as it relates to the surface parking area, is in part is the need for a wider vehicular drive aisle for emergency services. So it widens that aisle a bit. That's also partly why you see the change to angled parking on both sides. You can see on this concept it was perpendicular adjacent to the building. It also, because we're trying to make up some of that extra difference to circulate on the site, it also kind of skinnies up our pedestrian space on the north side of the building. So we are, I'll talk about it a bit more on the next slide, but we are still looking at some things along that north edge. If we could go to that next slide. So just a little bit of more project concept. You know, these mixed-use projects are exciting. We like to make sure that they're very much connected in a pedestrian way, and we like to think about where the users of this building and the residents of this building might want to get to, and how it circulates in the greater area and large downtown. And I know there were more diagrams like this included in your packet, but I just think this is an important one, talking about how access and linkages happen to other important, both cultural, civic, and even parking and other surrounding uses, in this immediate area. So this really just demonstrates it's part of our overall look of how we think this project can fit in this area. Next slide. Again, to the same point, we do a similar exercise looking at surrounding uses and where is there some additional residential and additional other amenities, and how does this project fit into that overall picture, again, in this context. And I know you're all well aware of your community and some of this information, but we do think that when we kind of back up to the question at hand of the actual rezoning and the overall site layout, we do think, as Mr. Allen indicated earlier, that this fits very nicely with the downtown. It calls it out for that type of land use and some of the larger goals of that comp plan to really increase the density in downtown and also activate spaces. And we feel like this project, as well as others that have occurred in the area, very much help to contribute to that activation overall of that space. Next slide, please. So the site layout. This is one of the site layouts that was included in your packet. I've just chosen this one. It's not as cluttered up with some of the other line work. So as we talked about earlier, the bank drive-through is gone, and what you see marked with two-way arrows on the Farwell side, that is in fact the ramp to the below-grade parking. So that is where traffic would enter the structured parking below. What is a bit trickier to see, maybe just image quality, is that the below-grade parking structure actually extends beyond the footprint of the rest of the building. You might be able to see, if whoever's driving there can kind of show, it almost follows the parking spaces on the north side of the building. Nope, on the north side of the building. Yep, and then if you move to the left, there's a dotted line. Yep, you just passed it. There's a dotted line. Keep going to the right, stop. Okay. It's about even with where the restaurant is on the west side of the building. So there's actually parking deck under some of that angled parking on the north side of the building. So anyway, what I was trying to get at was that is our way of being able to provide access to the below-grade parking that works with the elevation on the site. So we still maintain some good pedestrian access to the front of the building, and obviously that surface parking there. But again, that pedestrian piece has also gotten a bit skinnier because we do need to accommodate a 20-foot wide drive aisle for emergency services. And then you see the other row, the other bank of parking that's been noted several times closer to the north property line. What I will say about that is we have been looking at some other concepts that move some of those existing parking lot islands and bump outs that you see around, hoping to provide a better pedestrian access to the backside of the buildings that have been mentioned here several times. So we've been looking at ways to look at the dumpster location, the transformer location. Are we able to move some of these parking lot islands around without losing significant parking in order to try to have better access on the rear of those buildings? If I could just keep moving a little bit to the west, the area that also has been mentioned many times, kind of this patio up in the northwest corner. That is, is intended to be an interim use. The discussion was in part that it does allow an enlivened and active use along that urban street, as opposed to it simply being vacant until at some point perhaps it is further developed. We have looked at a variety of concepts. We looked at some temporary, I'm calling it temporary, how would some parking fit up there? Could it be circulated? The answer is that truly for the number of parking spaces we could yield there, it doesn't work very efficiently at all. We felt like it would be better to have a more enlivened space. The programming of that space is not determined and not known at this time, so it's not called out for anything in particular. I would then move a little bit to the southwest corner. There is, in fact, a patio planned outside of that west side of the building that's shown in some of those building perspectives, and that will be discussed a bit later. And then another thing I would just like to point out, so along the south promenade that there is still intended to be, and there is pedestrian easement and access along what we're calling kind of this promenade area that does have enhanced landscaping and some other pedestrian amenities. One thing worth noting, if you can imagine where the pedestrian crossing at Barstow is today in this vicinity, it actually does not align very well at all with the pedestrian access to the trail. So you sort of cross Barstow, then you have to turn and go up the street a bit to the parking lot driveway entrance, sort of cut through the parking lot to get to that pedestrian access that then connects you to the trail. So this plan really will bring that pedestrian connection, comes across the street, it crosses right into that public promenade space, and then connects directly back to the trail. So there are a couple opportunities for ramp connections to the existing trail, as well as a stair connection that links directly to that promenade area where again we're trying to enliven that edge, and we would envision that people would be moving through there whether they're a resident of the building or not. So again, just trying to enliven that particular space. Excuse me one second. So again, overall, we've had to do some shuffling geometrically on the site to get everything to fit and to work, and we are still looking at some options and some modifications on the north side. Again, we're all balancing all of this with connectivity, both for vehicles as well as pedestrian access, and also trying to be very aware of the need to provide as much parking as we feasibly can here. At this time, we've got the stats there. I know staff ran through those already, again, with the surface parking, the below-grade parking, and certainly the emphasis on bike parking. At this time, I would like to turn it over to Steve Miller to talk about the architectural piece of the actual building.
Okay.
And go to the next slide, please. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Miller?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time tonight. And thanks especially to Mr. Allen for explaining the project really well and the process that we've been through. So I'll just speak briefly about the architectural concept. This diagram is something we did pretty early on, and we were inspired by the vibrant music culture that Eau Claire has. And the title of the building, Andante, is a musical term meaning at a walking. It's a tempo term, so it's a tempo at a walking pace, which we thought was really lovely for the South Promenade, pedestrian promenade that that's a big part of the project along the river. And we're orienting the building towards the river, so all of the retail faces the river, and really that's kind of the front of our building is the river side, the south side. So this is a diagram of that elevation, and you can see this sort of the rhythm of our windows and the structure, sort of highlighting these kind of frequent points of entry and interest that really go around the entire building. And then it's kind of broken up by these, what we're calling rests or caesuras, which are notated with the little diagonal hashes that are actually called railroad tracks in the musical term, which we thought was fun for the site. So we're just really trying to be rhythmic with the fenestration and layout of the openings and points of entry, creating really a vibrant pedestrian realm. So you could go to the next slide. This is that same elevation facing the river that you've seen, but just want to point out that those existing connections to the trail are maintained and sort of enhanced with the new trees between the new promenade and the trail, and the connections to the left that Rose was just describing to the existing trail. And that public art is sort of a placeholder there, but that's near where there's an existing pad for the public art, and that will be relocated to just very near where it is now to fit with the site plan. You can go to the next slide. So this is a great view of what kind of experiencing that pedestrian promenade would be. This is in the southwest corner. So there would be a restaurant patio spilling out here, as well as you can kind of see that I don't know if you can see it well enough on what you're viewing it, but there's the projecting signs for the micro retail that's facing this street or pedestrian street. And yeah, with the trees, and we just think it's going to be a really pleasant space for people to be connecting the trails. So you can go to the next slide. This is one of the entries to the residential lobby from the south, and a lot of our thinking about the building is we're trying to really emphasize the connection to nature and the river and the trails. And so one of the ways we're doing that is kind of views straight through the building. So when you enter the residential lobby, you can see through to the trail. If you're entering from the north, you can see through to the south. But this is the view from the south, and we're using some natural materials with the wood soffits and the wood on the balconies to help kind of assist in that ode to nature, if you will. Yeah, you can go to the next slide. So this is the west patio that's right on Barstow, and it's about 1,000 square feet. And I mean, it's really, we don't know what the restaurant tenant would be yet, so there's a lot of design still to happen there, but by setting the building back there, I think it really helps with the connection to the trail, the steps that come up from the river trail, and it flows nicely into this space. And also in this image, as well as some of the other ones, you can see we kind of alternate between the 1-story and 2-story brick, the brick base. So along the entire building, it kind of alternates between 1 and 2 stories that reflects and kind of echoes what's going on in the neighborhood with the historic fabric of single and 2-story commercial buildings. You could go to the next slide. So this is that rendering again of the northwest patio. That's kind of just an initial concept of what it could be, what that space could be used for to maintain that urban street wall. The buildings to the left have a kind of wood sign band that we're picking up on at that datum line with our wood trellis and sunshade. And just infilling that space with an active use, we just think could be really a good use of that space in the meantime until it's further developed. You can go to the next slide. So this is a ground floor plan. You can see the 2 larger tenants that are about 3,000 square feet on each end, and then right now there's 4 micro retail stores in the middle facing south, and then they would have a shared bathrooms and mechanical rooms and things like that are accessed by a shared hallway on the back, as well as you can see the lobbies here. You would be able to see to come in from the north and be able to go out through the south. So yeah, I'm gonna leave it on this slide and turn it over to Joy. She could describe the micro retail a little bit more and any other questions you might have about the layout of this plan.
All right, thank you. Joy Hahnemann.
All right,
Is this Joy?
Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Go
Great.
ahead.
Thank you so much. This is Joy Hahnemann with Merge Urban Development Group. I'm a partner on this project and very excited to be working in the home of my alma mater. So I graduated from UW Eau Claire in 2010 and I'm excited to have a good reason to come back. So I just wanted to touch on a couple of the really intentional pieces of this building design that have been formulated based upon conversations that we had very early in 2018 when the city had released the Block 7 request proposals. So we've been getting closer and closer with economic development and the city process since 2018 and heard a lot from some of the large employers in the area, our CU and JAMP, about some of the potential opportunities, specifically in co-location of some of these quick pickup spaces and the retail connection. So we definitely understand the challenges that are going on with Haymarket and some of the empty space, and our goal has been to respond to the market with something different and with something, like I said, that's very intentional to really activate that first floor because it's special to be so connected to the bike trail. So a micro retail concept, as you can see, we've got 2 anchors on the ends of the building and then about 2,400 square feet that can be broken into units as small as 600 square feet. These are designed to be small spaces that a business can get started and just try out their concept. We're not doing long-term leases. It really allows a small business to move into a space and get to work. What we've seen, where we've seen this work, and the type of concepts that we've explored have been juice bars, arcade bars, walk-up tacos, a photography studio, plants and flower shop, and like clothing, jewelry, gifts. And Eau Claire certainly has examples of this currently, but the co-location of small retailers like this is so important for the walkability and really creating a unique destination for that casual foot traffic that I think is very apparent in the aspirations of the community. We're really excited about the kind of better together idea about being able to walk on that promenade and happen upon a retailer that maybe you wouldn't have happened upon otherwise. We're also really excited in our early conversations about this site plan. We connected with Julie with the Eau Claire Sculpture Tour to identify and relocate their permanent sculpture pieces and potential pieces for the site. So our team will be very intentional about making those walkable connections very fluid and hopefully, like I said, just a great retail and better together center for this area of town. If you want to move to the next slide, here is just an example of what a micro retail space would look like. The layout, the feel, and as you can see, the fixtures inside here, we would build it out, have a flooring, and just allow someone to really move in and just move in their non-permanent fixtures so that they can get it. The next slide, I wanted to take a moment to focus on our residential unit mix. So 100 North Farwell was identified as an undeveloped parcel suitable for residential development in the 2018 housing affordability analysis. Our rates haven't changed since our development agreement was approved by council in March, but I did want to offer an update to the CMI ratios. That's the one that we had proposed about 18 months ago. So I just wanted to give you the update based on 2018 county income and the fact that we've been very intentional about this building really meeting the economic middle. This is a market rate project. It is not funded with any type of tax credit or low income housing type initiative. So our units are sized to meet specific price points, and we offer a range of units across, like I said, the economic middle. So our rates are between $890 and $1,600 for studios to 2 bedrooms. There's a range of studios that will be an unfurnished studio without a private bedroom to your studio that is fully furnished, Murphy bed. Some have a little bit of a privacy barrier so that an individual, it's more like a one bedroom. We've got a range of 1 bedrooms, and then also 2 bedrooms, 2 bedroom, 2 baths with great patios. It should be a nice range of housing options for both single and young families, empty nester kind of dwellers that are just interested in the downtown Eau Claire living experience. So I used the 2018 county median income, which is around $55,000 a year, and we have 42% or 32 meet the 80% threshold of county median income. 79% or 60 units meet the 2018 county median income, and 100% of our units are at the 120% threshold.
Okay. Were you finished, or did we lose a connection here?
I was just reviewing my notes to make sure that I touched everything.
Oh, okay.
And I think that we have, I'm not sure that the site design team had addressed the square footage of the Barstow Patio. I know that Scott had asked a question, or Scott had been proposed the question about the size or about how much seating would be available, and that's shown that patio is 1,500 square feet. I think they covered the site plan evolution question pretty well. But let us know if there are other questions that remain open from the Plan Commission. We really appreciate your review.
I think before we open it up for questions from the commission, I'll just make sure there aren't any other people from the developer who need to speak. There's a Brent Dahlstrom on here. Hold on a minute. Mr. Dahlstrom, did you have anything to add?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, no, nothing to add. I'll be here to take any further questions that you may have, but appreciate your time.
All right. Whoops. All right. Do we have any questions from the commission? Commissioner Gregor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to everyone who spoke to flesh this out for us, and it really is an impressive project. I wanted to see, there's some of these loose ends that I think, are a major concern of folks in the community are primarily about the patios that could be potentially available for the property owner on the north to lease. I guess, the focus appears to have been on the Galloway Grill as having an option, and being very, and you all being very interested in conversations and working something out with them. But I guess I was wondering specifically about the Scooters patio, if there's where the conversations have been with regard to that, because that's, I think, just as important to folks in the community who are frequenters of that establishment too. So I guess has there been any discussion about that with the property owner to the north, or has that been something that is primarily something that they would have to figure out on their own property? Because I do see some property along the printing company's wall that could be used for such a purpose. But just wanted to check in on the scooters patio question. I do.
Okay, Ms. Schroeder, I think I'll start with you and see if you can answer the question, or do you want someone else from your group?
I would like to direct that to either Joy or Brent from the owner standpoint, please.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Brent?
we would welcome the conversation with scooters. Their current patio is roughly 365 square feet, so I think it would be really the conversation of with the city and with them on if we can give up a little bit of parking. It would maybe only take 1 to 2 stalls to accommodate patio. At the same point, the Galloway patio is currently 790 square feet, and scooters is roughly 365 square feet. And the proposed new public patio that we have out there is 1,500 square feet, giving us ample room to try to accommodate one or both. And then we definitely could look at reducing some of the parking. We've been trying to balance what is the correct amount of parking and an acceptable amount of parking. But I think as we've heard from the community, maybe lowering that and adding some of the patio space could be a win for everybody.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you
I'll
very
check.
much.
Ms. Hahnemann, did you have anything to add to that?
No, you can direct questions to Brent, and if I raise my hand, you can call, or I will. I'll add from there.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Commissioner Wolfgram.
Thank you, Chairperson Larson. Mr. Dahlstrom, I'm very encouraged to hear what you just said, that you welcome the conversation with both the Galloway Grill and Scooters about the accommodation for both patio spaces. And then going from there, has your group talked about having an actual sit-down with all parties to try to come to some kind of agreement? I'm also concerned, having been contacted, just like a number of other commissioners, by many community members this past weekend, and the copies of the petitions that we've received in support of both patios and also support of preserving as much existing parking for the small businesses as possible. I counted at least up until 11 o'clock today, 1,600 City of Eau Claire residents, not including an approximate same number from the surrounding areas. And so I was wondering if this sit-down is something that that your group is interested in doing with all concerned parties.
Mr. Dahlstrom.
No, absolutely. I think a conversation with neighbors is a necessity, and in involving the city staff in the conversations as well, because what is decided needs to really be a tri-party agreement. And so we would love to. We started getting conversations directed, or at least comments and calls directed our way really late last week and into the weekend. But I think now would be a great time to get together. And our group has already started doing that initial work to see how we could accommodate some of the initial concerns that we've heard.
That's very good to hear, Mr. Dahlstrom. Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission? Okay, I see none. And this is a public hearing. We will see if there's anyone from the public who is logged in to talk with us about this. And I'm going to start with a call-in user. Call-in user number 5 you appear on my list as. If you're calling in from a telephone to the meeting, please identify yourself. Anyone who's calling in by telephone? Okay, that's the only one of those. I know that there is a Jody Cavapo is here to speak on this. Mr. Cavapo?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so my name is Jody Quappo. I'm from Galloway Grill and Scooters. I've had scooters for 24 years and Galloway for 13. My main concern on this project is the proposed plan shows that my patios are gone, and I have not heard from anybody from Merge Development in this whole process until Thursday when I reached out to Joy. And I have not heard anything from the city, nor has any of the neighboring businesses about this project. I would think you would reach out to the businesses that have been here forever on this project. And I did send over 78 pages of petitions earlier on this proposed development. I am willing to sit down with Merge Development, yes, and talk about the patios, but like I said, I've had no contact with them until Thursday when I reached out to Joy on this. I'd ask that we table this here until this meeting with them is done, if that is possible. You think this is possible, or?
Well, that is an option. You know, we'll see how the discussion goes and how the Plan Commission votes.
Okay. And my other question was, I did send some emails over to a few of the members, Susan and that, about our landlord, John Mogeson, has tried to buy that strip of land. We do have the emails I sent over, and obviously the city is not interested in this. And from what I understand, Merge Development just wants to give us a short-term lease, which would not help us out if they only give us a couple years. Mm-hmm. Maybe Merge can help us with this on how they're feeling on this here subject.
Okay. Well, all right. Anything else to add?
Okay, and then back in 07 or 08, when I applied for my permits for Galloway Grill, before I built it out, I had to have so many parking spots in order to open. And you guys used the railroad parking lot for the parking spots that I would need. So now what you're doing is you're taking these away from me when they were supposed to be for the businesses I have. So I don't really think that's quite fair since we've been here so long. And then if we have to move the patios, you know, with this COVID, I'm at 50% at the restaurant right now. I can't afford to make new patios. I can't afford to pay a ton of rent to Merge. I guess that's about it for today. And then I got John Mogeson here also. Did you want him up next, or because we're on the same feed here?
All right. Does John have something to say?
Oh, yes.
Do you have any questions from Jody? Okay, so I think I bought buildings like 20-some years ago, and one of the reasons, 30? Oh, well, yeah, 30 years ago. Anyway, one of the reasons I bought them is because there was public parking available. And there were, and so like Jody says that he rents there, and the other people that rent there, and then the people on South Barstow Street all rent there, and they rented the properties based on having the parking lot there. and I know that things change, but they should have consideration for the people that are there. And, instead of just saying, okay, well, we have a new merged development. And the one thing I'd like to ask to get clarified is that I don't think that the city has actually clarified the exact parking spots that are required by this new development. You have these apartment buildings, and then you have the restaurant that keeps changing in size from their first plan to the second plan to the third plan. And then you have those 800 to 1,000 square foot spaces. My architect figured that they were like 65 spaces short. And I think that should be addressed because the existing businesses like Scooters and Galloway Grill each require a minimum of 35 parking spots, so that would be 66. So if you take that away from them, you're like 100 spaces short in that area. Do you have any comment on that?
Well, I know one of the questions that we received an email about had to do with how many stalls I think Galloway Grill was required to have when they got their license. Is there anything you can add to that, Mr. Allen?
Well, you can go back to like...
Mr. Allen's up right now, John.
In that park then I was there, but...
Okay.
The other question I have, maybe that...
Mr. Mogensen?
Maybe that...
Hello?
What?
Mr. Allen is prepared to answer your question about parking.
Hi, sorry, Scott here. In terms of the parking for Galloway Grill, we tried to do some research on that, other than the fact that we found that, again, I would say been grandfathered in, but it's been restaurant or tavern for such a long period of time that we didn't have the current parking standards applied to that. But the new proposal here, our estimation on the high end would be 146 spaces would be required, and they're proposing 98. So at most it'd be a 48 reduction that would be requested for this. So I would say not far off of the 65 in your estimation, but yeah, still certainly several dozen that are missing.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Allen.
Thank you. 48 spaces is a lot of spaces, and then if the proposal gets approved and all of a sudden they change the size of the restaurant, it'd be a little too late later. And then the lost spaces from the existing businesses of 33 and 33 is 66. So there's a shortage of parking there now, and this new development would create a bigger lost parking, unless you don't agree with that.
All right. Thank you. Is there anything else you want to add?
Well, yeah, I'd like to ask, I think that maybe one thing that the public should know, and maybe you don't want to share that because they don't usually do that, is that, so this is an out-of-town developer, so maybe you should tell the community how much money you are subsidizing them to come here and do their project.
Yeah.
You're selling the property for less than the assessed value, and then you're giving them money. Let's hear how much money you are giving them to come here and put our local businesses out of business.
Yeah, that's not part of the decision-making process here. But let me ask.
The public that votes on this should not know how much you are subsidizing an out-of-town developer to take away parking for small businesses. That I can't believe that should be a secret from the public.
I don't think there are any secrets, but that isn't an issue that the city council will address.
Well, I think it should be, people should know that.
Mm-hmm.
Unless the city is afraid to tell the public that they're giving away this money to somebody from out of town.
All right.
Sorry you don't agree with me.
All right, thank you. I'm just going to have to go down the list here and check on whether other folks are here to talk about this item. If you're listening and you've logged in to talk about this item, please look for an option on your screen there to raise your hand, and that will help, but I will check with people. So Andler Seckel, are you here to talk about this item? Mr. Seckel or Seckel? Oh, all right. Anthony Meyer, are you here to talk about this item?
No, he's here for the next item.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, they're there. Dorothy Carpenter?
Hello?
Hello, Ms. Carpenter?
Yes?
Are you here to talk about the Railroad Street development?
No. No?
No? Okay. Thank you. Judy Mosley, are you here to talk about this item? Ms. Mosley? Someone named Justin, are you here to talk about this item? No. Christine Basom? Are you here
Nope,
to...
not for this item.
Okay, thank you. Sam Kessel? Are you here to talk about the Railroad Street development?
I'm with the development group, Bolton and Mank, where I'm here to answer any questions directed towards me.
Oh, okay. And Steve Sabota, are you here to talk about the Railroad Street development?
Not on this item.
Okay, thank you. All right. That looks like all of the folks who have come in to talk about the Railroad Street development. We will see if there's a motion on the commission for approval. Commissioner Christopherson.
I so move.
Sir, Commissioner Seymour.
Thank you. I second.
All right. Any discussion? Commissioner Wolfgram.
Thank you, Chairperson Larson. I have a commitment and a stewardship to our residents and to our downtown small businesses and to a city planning strategy that supports our culture and diversity and spaces in our city that serve diverse communities. Just briefly, in the 2015 book, Planning and LGBTQ Communities, part of a broader arc in urban studies encourages the integration of diverse groups into planning. Rather than taking a one-size-fits-all approach, the broadening of inclusion is expected. The Galloway Grill and Scooters are two of these cultural spaces that not only serve our LGBT community, but are part of our greater diverse spaces in the city, blending into majority culture. These two businesses are also part of our rich downtown culture. As Jody mentioned, the Galloway Grill since 2007, and Scooters has been a part of our diverse downtown culture since 1997, entering their 24th year. The patio spaces are integral components of these two businesses and now core to their survival given the uncertainty of the risks posed by COVID-19. I'm not able to support the project until a sit-down occurs between all parties to come to an agreement, as also supported by Mr. Dahlstrom, as he called it, a tri-party discussion is welcomed and needed to address the two patio spaces as well as parking to support our small businesses. So from my perspective, I would support a postponement so that the parties can work out these issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Obaid.
I would just like to echo my support for Commissioner Wolfgram's statement.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Prosnick.
I also would like to support Commissioner Wolfgram's statement. I just don't think that we can ignore the amount of signatures on the petition against this project. I mean, I think the project's amazing, and I'm very pro-development. I love anything that enhances downtown Eau Claire. It's something I'm really passionate about. I think this concept is amazing. So this is not to discredit any of the work that Merge has done, because I think this would be such a great addition to the downtown community. However, it's at the expense of two local businesses that thrive well here. And so although I'm not saying that I don't support Merge, I just feel that I can't support them until that discussion happens, that trifecta that they mentioned. And I just think that that has to happen, that they have to have that conversation before we can truly vote on this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other comments from the commission? Commissioner Greger.
Thank you, Chair Larson. Yeah, I certainly, feel the need to postpone in order to. I think there could really be some fruitful conversations. I know that there's been a lot of attempts on behalf of the city and the developers, and I think that there just hasn't been the connection made completely until right now, where there's an understanding. I think that really we could have some really good solutions that find a win-win here, where there can be patios for both Scooters and for Galloway Grill, in appropriate locations and maybe even larger spaces than they currently have, and still be able to do a development of this caliber at the site. When this was in front of City Council, for a number of decisions throughout the last couple of years, like the very first decision that came my way was really about declaring this excess land and whether to do that. And I was somewhat reluctant until, some of the other council members convinced me that, hey, let's just see what happens. Let's see what kind of developers step up. And so, I was curious enough to vote yes at that point, although reluctantly. And, I think that this project is a bit beyond, what I had imagined in terms of creativity, in terms of understanding, a lot of things that are important to me, like walkability, bikeability, connections to transit, understanding some of the needs in terms of one-bedroom units, understanding the needs in terms of smaller retail spaces or spaces for entrepreneurs. I think one of the things that I want to mention here, my focus in terms of this, the concern that I share with some of my fellow commissioners is, focused on the patio piece. I'm not as concerned about the parking piece because really there's more parking in this area of town than we've ever had in our history. If we look at a parking ramp of that size over at the North Barstow Galloway ramp, and a lot of the service parking. And one of the reasons why this is such a popular parking lot is because there are a lot of open spaces. So that actually means by definition that it is an underutilized lot. Looking back historically, and I used to work at the Chippewa Valley Museum. This lot used to have buildings almost all the way along the Eau Claire River, much closer to what is being proposed now, and also along almost all of Barstow Street, except for where the railroad went through. So it hasn't always been a parking lot. Our downtown, at one point had 0 parking lots because there were no cars. So, but it can get out of hand if we're talking, if the rhetoric gets really obsessed, I guess you could say, with parking as a concern, because back in the 1970s, it became very close to there being a parking ramp over the Eau Claire River all the way between Dewey Street and Barstow Street. And that's obviously a little getting a little bit too obsessed with parking. Maybe we have to be careful what we wish for if that's a major concern. So, kind of going back to my point here, I think the patios are the area of growth here for conversation, and that's why I would support a postponement. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Brunholt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Given the discussion and the apparent interest in postponement, is it appropriate for a motion to that extent?
You may make a motion if you wish.
I will move postponement of this item.
Thank you, Commissioner Wolfgram.
I will second. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Prosnick? No. Okay. Is there any discussion on the motion to postpone? Commissioner Christofferson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is there a time? Is it postponed to a time?
Yes, it'd be postponed just to the next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Allen.
Any more discussion on the postponement? Commissioner Greggert.
Thank you, Chair Larson. I guess I just had a question for staff with regard to the logistics that they envision in such a scenario of postponement and, nurturing the conversations that need to take place. Is there any thing that staff has to say, I guess, about how they see that taking place and how they see their role in that, just so that we're clear as a plan commission what that'll look like?
Sure. It's something that we've discussed internally in terms of the number of staff involved. And again, I can go back to just, again, thanks to so many different departments that are connected with this. A lot of the answers to the questions that were posed today, came from the finance department, city attorney's office, economic development, engineering department. I'm sure I'm missing somebody, but I mean, there are a lot of staff that are involved in this project and this process in different ways and at different points. So, certainly I envision this then getting bounced back to the same group for review and consideration and communication with the applicant and their team as well. So definitely a team effort, but we do have several point people involved. City Attorney Steve Nick has been involved consistently throughout. Economic Development Manager Aaron White's been involved as well. So again, without tagging anybody, one person in particular, I know the two of them would be pretty intimately involved in this. And I know, again, they've had conversations with the landlord, property owner to the north, and such throughout this, so I could see them circling back in that regard as well. But it would be something that have to be done in quick order, knowing that just 2 weeks' time, we would have to have some additional information at least for the Planning Commission consideration.
Thank you. Any other comments on postponement? I have a couple of comments. Initially, my concern about this development was that in our comprehensive plan for the downtown plan, there's a section there that talks about calling for a plan, master plan for that particular neighborhood. All of the other developments that have been done down there have been part of a master plan. And the North Barstow Street area is divided into two areas. The area west of Barstow Street and north to Madison Street was the riverfront development plan. This area east of Barstow Street, north to William Street, and bordering on the east side, Dewey Street, is the area, specific area that's identified in the comprehensive plan for a master plan, and it was supposed to be done by 2020. I would be more comfortable if this development had been done after that master plan, which was one of the reservations that I had for this development. But as I look through and see the number of public hearings that have been held, and then learn tonight that the North Barstow Street bid had meetings on this in which the development was discussed and plans for the Railroad Street lot. The RFPs were released in March of this year, or of last year, and in March of this year, the RFP was approved, or the development plan and purchase agreement was approved at City Council. So, and all kinds of discussions in between there. Now, the North Barstow Street bid involves a number of businesses in that area, including the landlord for Galloway Grill and Scooters, who called in tonight. He was also he had a competing proposal, which was not selected. Had his proposal been selected, those buildings would have been demolished, including Galloway Grill and Scooters. So the fact, if it's true that that the tenants had no upcoming information about this development, shouldn't be laid at the feet of our city staff. They did everything they're supposed to do to notify the community. The city council held public hearings. This was no secret, and neither was the impact on the TID. So to have at the last minute a competing proposal, the people from a competing proposal opposing this development pushed me over the edge to agree to this development. I will not support a postponement. Any other comments on the postponement? Commissioner Seymour.
Thank you. I agree with everything you just said. I also think there's a misconception here that this development would put these two businesses under. I don't know how anyone came to that conclusion. I came to the conclusion that this development could enhance these businesses and this neighborhood, and I think it could be a win-win for everybody involved. I think I have a lot of trust that this developer will meet with these businesses and with the city, and they can work out these details amongst themselves. I'm not comfortable postponing this until such an arrangement is made. So I will not be in favor of a postponement. Thank you.
Commissioner Christopherson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've given this a great deal of thought during the weekend and today. The vibrancy of the conversation, the desire to see things remain the same, but I would prefer to take the word of the developer saying that he wants to make this good. He sees that it's possible. I think that honors the way that this development has moved along from its conception over a year ago. So I think that we have reason as a city and as a commission to believe that this development can move forward. So I would not vote in favor of the postponement at this time. Thank you.
Commissioner Prosnick.
I just have a follow-up question to that. Could we, if that was the case and we ended up voting to not postpone, could we make sure that it was at least written in the minutes or recorded that we would want that offering from the developer to have that talk, that conversation? I mean, I know we can't force it, it's not in writing, there's not a contract, but can at least we have it recorded that they did offer to meet with those parties who are concerned? Because I think for me, I would feel better knowing that that was put in writing, that Brent's offer was there, that he'd be more than happy to discuss options with them. Because then we can hold them to it, I guess, if they didn't, or at least, publicly, if that makes sense. Thank you.
I would think that the developer's statement could be put into the minutes, could it not?
Just thinking through it as we're talking here, certainly a good question in terms of the minutes, certainly would be reflected in that. Just thinking what would be an enforceable condition of approval or something like that
Right.
typically goes forward with Plan Commission. That doesn't seem like that would be a condition of approval per se, but
Right.
There'd be more something structural that, if you have an idea for what you think should be built or setback modified or parking area changed, those are things we could certainly put in conditions that, we could, I say force compliance, but exactly, other things would just be exactly kind of notations in the minutes.
That was like what I was referring to, was like with the JCAP arrangement.
Yeah,
And I
not
believe,
as much enforceable, but
yeah,
just
Commissioner
simply
Wolfgram added to hold it because they offered the affordability. We can't force it, but to acknowledge that they did say that they would.
Right.
And if we could have that recorded, I feel, for me personally, because I am in favor of listening to all sides and encouraging them to talk together, because I said I don't want to see two businesses suffer as a result, but I do, I agree with you as well, though. This development is going to bring a lot of people to that area. So there's two sides to that story. There's benefits on both aspects of it. But I think, those business owners deserve a voice. You have a track record of showing that you've attempted it, but they're claiming that it wasn't. So I think this is really forces that conversation to happen. And by just making sure that it's recorded in some way, some way, for me, it gives me that peace of mind knowing that I feel like it'll truly happen. And that I'm more willing to support in favor of the project, because I do think the project is phenomenal. I would hate to see it not come, but I just don't want two great businesses to be negatively impacted.
Thank you. Any other comments from the commission regarding postponement? Commissioner Greggert.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Larson. I guess, when we have this site plan as we do in front of us, the reason why I support a postponement is I'd like to see an updated site plan that reflects, what I think what I would like to see at least, which is, is clear about how the land is being used, on the north end in particular with regard to any potential patios that would be on the merged property versus remaining on the property owner to the north's land. So I'm just when I look at this site plan right now, it just doesn't excite me that much, when that is not explained. So that's my reasoning for being interested in the postponement, so that we know exactly what we're voting on in terms of an outcome. And part of it is because it's going in front of City Council later, and I want to have a good idea there when I have another vote on this. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments regarding postponement? Commissioner Christopherson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Allen, does a postponement in any way delay the project in a significant way?
I may defer to the applicant on that. I don't have a good answer for you based on the discussion you're saying.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Dahlstrom?
Yeah, thank you. Postponement's never excited a developer, but as you think about a city and the long-term implications of decisions that you make, we're very cognizant of the fact that sometimes delays are inevitable. And we want to respect being really new to this town as a development group. And so I can't sit here and say that 2 weeks would ruin our project in any way. And in fact, if that shows you that we are, a community-minded group, we would welcome that postponement. But as I said to start, it's never exciting, but I understand it can be part of the process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments on postponement? All right, I see none. We will call the roll on the motion to postpone. Commissioner Christopherson.
No.
Prosnick.
No.
Seymour.
No.
Brenholt.
Yes.
Granlund.
No.
Graggart.
Aye.
Wolfgram.
Aye.
Obaid.
Aye.
And chair votes no. Mr. Petrie, I hope you kept tally.
4 ayes, 5 noes.
Okay, so that motion fails. So we're back to the main item. Is there any further discussion about the item number 6, rezoning and the site plan? Commissioner Christopherson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just briefly like to say I found this proposal to be very imaginative and delightful. I like the idea of the andante and all of the terms and the metaphors that you use to weave it into the downtown. I really appreciate the positioning that this group of professionals have even managed in this discussion, and I really look forward to a relationship that the Plan Commission could have in future developments.
Thank you. Commissioner Seymour.
Thank you. I've lived in this city for 52 years, which is how old I am, in case you're wondering. And I grew up here, and all my life I heard about how this city has never taken advantage of the rivers. And we are finally starting to do that. And I think this project is perfect for this location. And I appreciate what the developers have done for this. And I think these two businesses that we've been talking about are going to benefit from this. And I do not see them going away because of this development. And I'm sure that everyone will be able to work out some kind of an arrangement that all parties are happy with. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Commissioner Wolfgram.
Thank Thank you, Chairperson Larson. I did want to make a couple of comments. I wanted to acknowledge that Ms. Hahnemann is a stakeholder in our community, not a quote-unquote out-of-town developer, as some have referred to her as. As she stated, she attended UW-Eau Claire, and as I watched the Waterways and Parks Commission meeting on July 22nd, she stated, and I hope I'm not misrepresenting your intent, Ms. Hahnemann, that you may be returning to Eau Claire with your partner. I am overall supportive of this very holistic, creative design from Slingshot Architecture, and I hope that it's very clearly reflected in the minutes that Mr. Dahlstrom welcomes the tri-party discussion, and that also demonstrates a willingness by Merged and an intent by Merge to be a stakeholder in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on this item? Commissioner Greggert.
Thank you, Chair Larson. I just wanted to reflect a bit on this weekend, maybe before the vote here. I spent probably about 15 hours working on, how this, project can be even better than what is being proposed here, particularly as it relates to neighboring property owners and businesses. And really wanted to, in part, thank everyone for the conversations, folks in the public as well that have reached out to me, but also disclose, that I did, have a couple of conversations with Mr. Mogensen, who owns the properties to the north. I had a couple of conversations with Mr. Cavapil, I think is how you say Jody's last name, regarding, as the owner of Scooters and Galloway Grill. I spoke with Ms. Hahnemann from Merge. I spoke with our city manager, Dale Peters. I spoke with Commissioner Susan Wolfram. I spoke with Councilmember Andrew Worthman. And I expect these conversations, I think the community is going to be talking about this project, and I hope it's really about how it can be a real benefit for our community and really enhance our downtown. At this time, however, I can't support like the project that's proposed, but that could very well change by the time the vote goes to City Council in a week. So just very open-minded as I have been and willing to put the time in. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Brenholt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I made the motion with the purpose of wanting to continue discussion. I appreciate the discussion that we had regarding the motion, and I have a belief that the developers operating in good faith and hope they continue to have discussions with the tenants that are to the north that are going to be impacted by this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on this item? All right, I see none. We will call the roll on passage of this item. Mr. Christofferson.
Aye.
Prosnick.
Aye.
Seymour.
Aye.
Brenholt.
Aye.
Granlund.
Aye.
Greggert.
No.
Wolfgram.
No.
Obeyed.
Aye.
Thank you. That passes. Congratulations to Merge. And our next item, if I can find my agenda, is item number 7, a public hearing for approval by the Plan Commission for a conditional use permit to construct a detached garage at 3312 Riverview Drive. Mr. Petrie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Number 7 is on the north side of the community, pretty close to the airport. Here's the parcel map showing the proposed parcel. Well, the parcel is already there, but the parcel that's existing does have existing right-of-way that's in the middle of their lot. That's the divide. That's the extension of Donna Court. That right-of-way has never been improved. It is still on the GIS and still active today. All of the lots that face the river have frontage onto Riverview Drive. All the owners own both sides of the right-of-way that has been platted but not actually improved. This evening is a conditional use permit for the applicant for another detached garage. This was not in your packet. They are showing the new garage to be to the east of the existing house. In the location of existing shed. It is a plus or minus 12 feet from the property line to the south. To the north, it's slightly more than that. It's probably about 25 to 30 feet. The applicant is proposing a 30-foot wide by 64-foot garage, detached, approximately 1,920 square feet. The proposal is on the screen now. It is a one overhead door proposed. It is more of a barn style proposal with the proposed garage. The parcel is approximately 2.4 acres in size. Again, the height is below the 18 feet, which is the maximum we allow without the conditional use. The reason why the Plan Commission is looking at it this evening is a couple of reasons. They have existing detached garage. Here's the floor plan of showing the proposed garage, but they also provided many pictures of the property. This would be looking from Riverview Drive to the west, heavily wooded lot. This would show the existing detached garage, as noted in the report, at approximately 400 square feet. With the new garage and this garage, it would be at 2,300 square feet. The maximum allowed without a conditional use is 1,000 per garage or 1,500 combined. This conditional use would allow for not only a one detached garage, but an additional detached garage on the site. Going over the pictures of the shed that would be removed, they are removing a few trees with this proposal as well. You can see their pine trees to the east of the existing home. Again, the shed that would be removed from the site. And then a few more trees that would be taken down for the detached garage. So going back to the proposal, this subdivision is larger than a typical single-family lot in the community. This area has seen similar proposals to this in the past, and I believe in the future you'll see more. The applicant is proposing storage of automobiles, a pontoon boat with trailer, a speedboat with trailer, a snowblower, lawn mowers, and other items, seasonal items they noted. The property is zoned R1, and with that, I would be happy to answer any questions for this proposal.
Thank you. Mr. Brenholt, Commissioner Brenholt, did you have a question?
I'd take my hand down.
Okay. Commissioner Granlund?
Yes, I believe when I looked on the geographic information system that platted road includes both the sewer and water lines to all of the residences. I would just want to make sure that the placement of the building does not interfere with the sewer and water lines that run within that roadway area.
Yes, excellent question. You can add that as a condition of approval with this conditional use permit. I believe that is within the existing right-of-way, but that would be a fine condition to add.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions for staff? I see none. Thank you. And let's see, this would be Mr. Meyer, right?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer, do you have anything to add? Anthony Meyer?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. All right. Any questions from, okay, Commissioner Christopherson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Meyer, I wonder, we received an email from one of your neighbors regarding view. Have you had any conversations with neighbors concerned about the location?
As far as the location, the way the building is being set, one neighbor had a recommendation that we actually move it back, but that would move it, we'd have to take more trees down, and then we would also start getting into the easement.
Okay. So that was the only conversation, and no one complained about a loss of view or anything like that?
No, and if you look at the pictures that we submitted, I'm not sure what view that you would be blocking from either the south or the north side.
That was my question. So no one has approached you. Thank you very much.
All right. Any other questions or comments from the commission for Mr. Meyer? All right. Thank you, Mr. Meyer. This is a public hearing, so we will see if there's anyone here. First of all, it'd be helpful if you're here if you're logged in to speak on this topic, please raise your hand on the app. But I will just double check and make sure, because some people are not sure how to do that. So,
Mr. Chair, I do believe Ms. Carpenter was.
Oh, okay.
Was the neighbor
all right.
interested in speaking?
Dorothy Carpenter?
Hello? Yes.
Yes, hi. Where do you live in relation to this house?
We are right next door. If you looked at the picture, we are to the left.
Okay.
We've had this property since 1948, and it would obstruct our view.
It would obstruct.
I'm sorry we don't have pictures, but we weren't very well informed on this meeting.
Okay.
We have never seen any pictures of what they were going to do. One time, Cindy had showed me a picture of it, and that was it. We never got any information from the city or nothing.
Okay. Mr. Petrie, can you put back the slide that has the lot lines on it? Okay, so this obstructs your view toward what?
Well, towards the north, it would, because where we sit in our yard, that's all we would see would be this garage.
Okay.
And so that's why we suggested that they move it back.
Okay.
At least give us, work with us on it a little bit.
Okay. All right. Anything else to add?
No, I guess, I can understand them wanting one. We would, but it's just that it's so big that that's all we'd see.
All right. Any questions or comments from the commission for Ms. Carpenter? All right. Thank you, Ms. Carpenter.
Thank you.
Andler Seckel, are you here to talk about this conditional use permit? Oh. Steve Sabota, are you here to talk about the conditional use permit? Oops. All right. Steve Sabota. Sorry, I had you muted.
I'm the builder. I could answer any questions if needed.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Sabota? I see none. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. So we will see if there's a motion for this item. Commissioner Seymour,
Thank you. I move approval.
is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Prosnick, thank you. Any discussion? I see none. Oh, Commissioner Wolfgram.
Thank you, Chairperson Larson. I just want to register my discomfort really in, again, a conversation not being had with a neighbor who has a very long history of owning their property and that it is obstructing their view. And I believe I heard the neighbor express that perhaps there could be a different location of the detached garage. And I would hope that that conversation would take place. So I would not be voting approval for this conditional use permit unless that conversation would have taken place or would take place. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to point out, Mr. Meyer said that he did have a conversation with a neighbor who asked if he could push it back, but that would encroach on the easement. Mr. Greggert.
Thank you, Chair Larson. Yeah, I mean, just in general, I feel like a garage of this size is, regardless of the lot in the city, is pretty huge. So I have concerns about the overall size of it. So I wouldn't plan on supporting it at this juncture. That's just what I wanted to disclose at this point, is my reservations just about the size, and obviously there appears to be an impact on a neighbor that is concerned as well. So I just want to acknowledge that. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? I see none. We will call the roll. Commissioner Christopherson.
No.
Mr. Prosnick.
No.
Seymour.
Yes.
Brenholt.
No.
Granlund.
Yes. Aye.
Greggert.
No.
Wolfgram.
No.
Obeyed.
No.
And chair votes no. That item fails. So we go to item number 8, which is a public discussion for recommendation to the City Council regarding an annexation from the town of Union for the Hanson family at 2040 Preston Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. This evening is an annexation for existing home and land at 2040 Preston Road. The parcel is located number 8 on the west side of town. Currently in the town of Union, it's the farther south parcel on Preston Road. Existing home, it would be allowed to be subdivided after it was annexed into the city. Currently in the town, it's zoned R1L. The surrounding zoning for the city is R1. Again, the parcel is approximately 1.1 acres within the sewer service area of the city. This request would be to connect to city sewer and water, which is available along the street. This request is consistent with the comprehensive plan, and I would be happy to answer any questions this evening.
Thank you. Any questions for staff from the commission? I see none. Thank you. And anybody know if Mr. Segal is involved with the applicant at all? Okay. So we will see if, so the applicant is not here to speak. We'll see if there's a motion on the commission.
Motion to approve. The comprehensive plan, or the to approve the
annexation.
request. Yep.
Commissioner Prosnick and Commissioner Seymour.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question. Commissioner Christopherson.
Aye.
Prosnick.
Aye.
Seymour.
Aye.
Brenholt.
Aye.
Granlund.
Aye.
Greigert.
Aye.
Wolfgram.
Yes.
Obeyed.
Aye.
And chair votes aye, and that passes. Item number 9 is public discussion for a recommendation to City Council and annexation from the town of Washington. Applicant is Holzinger Homes, south side of Harless Road, west of Dreyer Road. Mr. Petrie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Number 9 is located on the southeast side of town. This parcel is in the town of Washington. This area has seen significant annexations over the last 5 to 10 years. This is just another parcel that is vacant right now, currently 0.63 acres. Holzinger Home is the property owner and will be developing the parcel. The town of Washington is on the north side and the east side. That would be one of the last parcels within the town, kind of taking over their island as this area starts to see more development. This property is located within the sewer service area of the city. Again, this request would be to potentially allow for subdividing the parcel into 2 single-family homes at a later date. There is sewer and water available along this street as well. This request is consistent with the comprehensive plan, and I would be happy to answer any questions this evening.
Any questions from the commission for Mr. Petrie? Mr. Christopherson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know this isn't necessary for the vote, but do we have any idea what the intent of the annexation is, how this would be developed?
Yes, my understanding is he would, the applicant would divide it into 2 parcels and then build 2 single-family homes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? I see none. Thank you. Is there a motion on the commission? Mr. Christopherson.
I move to approve.
Okay. Mr. Seymour.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, we'll call the question. Commissioner Christopherson.
Aye.
Prosnick.
Aye.
Seymour.
Aye.
Brenholt.
Aye.
Granlund.
Aye.
Greigert.
Aye.
Wolfgram.
Aye.
Obeyed.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and that item passes. Next on the agenda is discussion items, starting with the landmark designation for 204 East Grand Avenue. Mr. Ivory, thank you for waiting so patiently through the whole meeting.
It was an interesting discussions. Good evening. The Landmark Commission has been contacted by the owners of 204 East Grand Avenue to consider local landmark designation. They're in the process of doing remodeling, renovation of the building, and by having the building listed on the local register would make them eligible for the state historic building code. So there would be some advantages to have the building on the register in order to take advantage of some of those codes. This is the location of the building. It's on the northeast corner of East Grand and Graham Avenue. Here's a picture of the building. Probably most of us think of the building as the Wells Fargo building. It actually was built in 1930 by Hepner Bartlett Company for the Scandinavian American Fraternity Insurance Company. Actually was a local insurance company that started in Eau Claire back in about 1893. And they grew large enough that by 1930 that they felt they needed their own 6-story building, essentially. The first story of the building has always been occupied by banks, and then the insurance company occupied the upper 5 floors of the building. The first bank was the State Bank of Eau Claire, and the Eau Claire National Bank, the American National Bank, Norwest, and then, as I mentioned, most recently, the Wells Fargo building. The Landmark Commission actually did work with the State Historical Society about 4 years ago to try to get the building on the National Register. We actually hired a consultant to do a kind of a preliminary review of the building. Because of on the west side of the building where that exterior staircase is located up on the 4th and 5th floors, and then on the west side, some of the windows had been blocked off by one of the earlier banks. The State Historical Society felt that it was not eligible for the National Register at that time, but the Landmark Commission was interested in locally designating it, but it took until now for the owner and developer of the building to want to put it on the local register. As part of the code requirement for local designations, we're supposed to notify the Plan Commission and other city departments about the pending designation in terms of if anybody has any issues with this. This is in compliance with our comprehensive plan in terms of encouraging local designations of properties, particularly within our downtown area. But we wanted to make sure we got any comments from the Plan Commission.
Okay.
One other thing, I guess, just we did, in our research of the building, we did run across the original dedication program of the building from 1930. It actually is about a 30-page document that contains mostly advertisements of the different companies that were existing back in 1930. So it's kind of an interesting thing to look at.
Yeah. All right. Any questions from the commission for Mr. Ivory? Commissioner Greger.
Thank you, Chair Larson. Mr. Ivory, thank you so much for your work on this. This picture with the staircase, I've always kind of wondered about that. Could you maybe tell us a little bit more or what you know about it in terms of why it was installed and at about what time period?
I don't have a lot of details on that in terms of the time frame when it was installed. It's my understanding that it was more than likely was a fire code requirement at some point in time when some remodeling was occurred in order to provide better egress from the 5th floor down to the 4th floor. I don't really have any more details on that. The current owners and developers of this building anticipate actually having removing that as part of their project by doing some other remodeling with inside and also with the historic building code. They may be allowed to remove that. And then the windows that are on the 2nd floor that were blocked, they are planning on opening those up also. So we may actually be able to take this back to the State Historical Society and possibly have them reconsider the National Register nomination. By having it on the National Register listing, the owners would be eligible for state and federal tax credits for the project, so that would be a big benefit for them also. So it would be nice to get that stairway removed.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Granlund.
Thank you. I've actually been through that building on a consultation, and it's quite clear that someone discovered that the northwest corner of that building would make a great corner office, and they decked in the top of the stairwell, which caused them to require another stair to bypass the corner office to get back down to the stairs itself. It turns out the stairs that go to the top floor are currently hidden in a closet below that corner office. So essentially, by sacrificing that corner office back to a stairwell, they would have plenty of exiting.
Wow.
Thanks for that perspective. That's
Yeah.
good information.
That's the kind of
Thank
answer
you.
I was looking for right there.
Thanks. All right. Any other comments from the Plan Commission? We don't need to take any action, right?
You don't have to, no.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Next is the 2019 Development Map and Report.
Due to the late hour, I won't get into this in too much detail, just that on an annual basis, we do put together an annual report and development report of the development that has occurred the previous year. The 2019 report actually is our 40th installment of the development map and report. And I can say that I've been involved in 36 of those reports.
Wow.
I won't get into a lot of the detail. We thought we might have a little shorter meeting tonight, but I'll just kind of generally summarize that 2019 was a fairly good year for development. I'll just jump ahead quick to a couple different things here. This shows the number of dwelling units that were constructed 2019. You can see there were 377 dwelling units that were constructed, showing that it was an above average year. 2019 was a good year for multiple family development. We had 6 projects that had 6 units or more. We had 3 fairly large ones with the first phase of the cannery development over on Oxford that you reviewed, the second phase tonight. That was 71 units. The conversion of the Severson home to housing, that was 49 units. And then there was a 12-unit project up on Star Avenue. And then we had a bunch of 8-plexes and 6-plexes that were built, constructed in 2019. So that was one of the main reasons. We also had a good year for single family. It was about an average year. And then for condominium development, that was a little bit above average. A lot of those occurred up on Jeffers Road in the development over by the Northwest Community Park. And then in terms of valuation was really an average for the last 5 or 6 years. If you take out 2017, which was our record year, it shows that really 2019 was a fairly average year. And then just in terms of we do track our population. As of January 1st of last year, 2019, we were a little over 68,000. Our estimates for this year, January 1st of 2020, should be coming out any day now, essentially, and those are developed by the state of Wisconsin. We are in the middle of our 2020 census, so actually we'll have an official number come early next year in terms of what our 2020 census is, but it should come in fairly close to that 68,057. And this is the map that we put together for each year. If you go online, you can get into the more detail. This actually shows where the single family homes were, the duplexes, all the residential, and then all the commercial, industrial, and public permits that have a value of 10,000 or more. It's hard to show here and I can't zoom in, but the concentrations of the residential development, again, we're up on Jeffers Road, where there was a combination of condominium and single family development, and then some twin homes also up in that area. Over the High Clare development up by next to the Princeton Valley over on the northeast side. And then down on the southeast side of the city, the Dreyer Road area where you just had the annexation, number of single-family homes in that area, and then along Gateway Drive by Prill Road, a number of 6-plexes that were built in that area, and then down along Sessions Street, there were a number of 6-plexes that were built in that area too, off of Fairfax. So that kind of shows generally where they were located. The yellow areas are the areas that were involved with rezonings. Up on the far northwest side, you can see a large area of yellow. And really what that happened is that we had a couple amendments to some sign provisions for the gateway development, so that's why that area is shaded yellow up in that area. Just wanted to give you a quick update in terms of where we're at currently. This is our monthly report as of through June. The July report probably is going to be ready tomorrow, unfortunately. But basically what this shows, if you look down at the bottom right-hand corner, bottom right-hand corner, you can see our permit valuation to date for 2020. It's a little over almost $78 million in comparison to about $81 million in a year ago. So we're really not too far off from our total valuation from a year ago. And then if you look at the upper right-hand corner, you can see the residential construction year to date in terms of for example, the single family. Right now we are at 25 versus 36. If you go down to the multiple family, you can actually see we're ahead with 76 versus 36. So we're somewhat comparable to where we were last year at this point in time, maybe just a little bit behind. And then this is some of the major permits that have been issued so far to date for 2020. Any of those that were over $500,000. You can see the largest one was actually issued by the City of Eau Claire for the Eau Claire water treatment plant. Excel Energy had a large permit. Cancun Grill, that permit was just issued, and that is just under construction right now. And then you can see a lot of additional 8-plex and 6-plex units that have been permits have been issued, and you can see over Gateway Drive and along Hamilton Avenue. So it kind of gives you a feel for some of the permits that, even though with the COVID-19, there is a lot of development activity that is still going on right now. With that, if you have any questions, that's kind of the executive summary of the report.
Good, thank you. Commissioner Granlund.
Sorry, I left my hand up from before.
Oh, okay. Any other commissioners have comments or questions? Okay, I see none. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
I'm going to make a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
I missed it.
I just am not sure Mr. Allen is going to remind us that this excellent work that we've heard reported on is the last time that Mr. Ivory is going to be in front of us. So I just wanted to say thank you very much for your excellent work.
Thank you.
We'll be talking about that in a little bit, too. Okay, so, all right. 5-year comprehensive plan update. Mr. Allen.
Probably shouldn't say, turn to page 1 in your comprehensive plan at this late stage, but no. Just a real quick update. Again, it's been a while since we had an opportunity to talk about the comprehensive plan in the 5-year review. But I included a cover memo, and like Mr. Ivory was doing, just kind of a quick executive summary type thing. Staff has kind of divvied up, in the planning division, divvied up all the different chapters, and gone through, and thanks to all the great work of the planning staff, they've put together different kind of spreadsheets for each of the different chapters and each of the different plan implementation plan items, and we're kind of going through and making comments and updates and kind of putting together what do we need to do next with each of these and get your input on that. So that's where I wanted to leave it for tonight, is just kind of get some feedback just real quickly on the idea of like a work session perhaps coming up sometime early this fall. We can even talk about this again at the next meeting if you'd like, and go through some of this more, I'll say line by line, but I can pull up the spreadsheets and just show you what we've been working through. I was intending to do that tonight, but again, considering the late hour, just didn't want to go drill down through each of those items individually. But I saw a few nods of folks here, but wasn't sure just more broadly if a kind of a work session idea would make sense. We could do it at the tail end of one of these meetings, even beforehand. Again, considering our virtual nature here, we'd have to work on see what that looks like. But Doesn't necessarily have to be a separate meeting, like a separate day or week, but it could be tagged along with this type of.
Well, do we have any idea how many items are going to be on our next meeting? Is it going to be a?
Mr. Petrie's looking that up as we speak. We do have a handful. I may not propose a work session at the next meeting, but
Okay.
I'm thinking perhaps into September because staff is still finalizing some of the work that we've done. So
Okay.
we'd like to come fully prepared to kind of
Sure.
walk through those pieces if you don't mind. I mean, we can certainly still talk about things next meeting and talk through some other schematics and schedule and things of that sort. That's fine as well.
Well, hopefully we can, maybe we can intentionally set aside one of our regular meetings in September where we can handle a couple of, a few items.
Right.
And then move into a work session.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we have 6 items for next meeting, so.
Okay.
it
And
may
you
be too
guys
much
need a
to
little
try
more
to
time, which is
stretch
fine.
that out.
Mr. Christopherson.
I must be lonely. I'm doing all my talking here at this meeting, but I'm sorry again to have a comment. I think that your last paragraph there was considering our last discussion, blah, blah, blah. Spreading this out so that more citizens may participate in the conversation. I've always had this much more resident-oriented perspective of just asking each other, do you know what this means? I've got this idea, is that included there? So that it doesn't take a lot of staff time, but funnels things back to staff, so in my mind, what I'm thinking is I would love to hear what the staff has been thinking about, and then I would be willing to be part of some Zoom meetings inviting the citizens to say, so what do you know, or what's this really about, or I've never felt invited. Can we maybe plan those in, that type of informal conversation? Could we plan that into the process?
Yeah, sure. No, that's a great comment. Again, others have as well. That's, exactly. We were struggling with, I had this grand plan of a task force and steering committee and all these things. And it's like, well, how do we really make that viable and useful and purposeful? And perhaps it's more of a kind of a town hall type thing where we open it up in a Zoom meeting format or WebEx or something like we have here. Maybe that's an opportunity. So yeah, certainly those are things, as you have those ideas, shoot them our way. We don't have to wait for our next meeting to have that kind of conversation, but that's something we can certainly talk about at the next agenda as well, is just some ideas for when that could happen. Would you like to do kind of chapter by chapter, or just have it more of a, again, town hall, bigger questions, and just kind of winnow it down from there? So we don't have the right answer for that. It's one of those things you almost, is kind of that fear of decision making. It's like, do you want to pick one way and then realize maybe this wasn't the best and have to pivot to something else? And I think we, at least for me, need to all be open to that possibility, just considering the current environment, that we may have to kind of try one thing and pivot to something else and try another thing, and hopefully along the way gather some good information.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. I guess, again, my perspective would be, as long as I would like to contribute listening time, as long as I'm not inhibiting what the staff needs to have as a product. So that's really what I'm thinking, not the overall large plan, but just giving more airtime to individuals. Thank you.
No, thank you. Very good.
All right. Any other comments from the commission? Seeing none, we'll go to our last discussion item, which is certificate of appreciation for Mr. Ivory. As Pat mentioned earlier, he's been with the city for 36 years. And it's time for him to collect his reward.
And it's already that big.
Yeah. Plus the pension, you know, that's not so bad, right? Wisconsin has one of the best pension programs in the country, you know. I'm very proud of it. We should all be. So this is a certificate of appreciation for Pat Ivory. Whereas Patrick Ivory has served the citizens of the city of Eau Claire since December 12, 1984, as associate planner and later became senior planner of the city's community development department on March 21st, 2007. And whereas he has been a strong advocate of comprehensive planning, historic preservation, park and riverfront beautification and utilization, and neighborhood revitalization. And whereas his professional knowledge and experience has been a keystone of the Plan Commission. And whereas Pat has worked with city boards, commissions, committees, city staff, community groups, and neighborhood groups on numerous plan updates. And whereas his thoughtful and detailed work has encouraged a higher quality of development and safety for the community. Now therefore, the City Plan Commission of the City of Eau Claire, as well as the city staff and the citizens of the city, hereby shows its appreciation to Patrick Ivory for his contributions, leadership, and service to the City of Eau Claire. And I would just add that I am especially going to miss his depth of knowledge on our sign ordinances, because it's one that I always have questions about, and it's a difficult thing to work through. So I appreciate your work on that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wright.
Yeah, thank you. Just wanted to briefly say that luckily Ryan was able to take over the sign code things about 4 or 5 years ago, and that definitely extended my tenure here with the city. But I'd like to thank the Plan Commission for all the years in working on the various projects, the multiple comprehensive plans that we did over the years since 1984, the neighborhood plans, working with all the different community groups and citizens, as kind of mentioned on the plaque here, with the commissions, the committees, the neighborhood associations, the different task force. Something that I really enjoyed, and just meeting all those people over the years, it was really a kind of a big part of my job. Also with our city staff, with Scott, who's been here about 2 years now?
Yes, 2.5.
2.5. Brian going on 5? Over 5. Leah, who I think is maybe online here, but she's been here about 5 years. And then Ned, who's been here about 12 years, and Angie, I think about 5 years or so too. So really a relatively young staff, with the exception of me here. So I think it'll be nice to get some new blood while working for the city within the department. And again, thanks to the Plan Commission.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
So what are you going to do next? I mean,
Well, we had, my wife retired about 5 years ago, and she's been bugging me for 5 years to retire, so she finally went out. We had planned on doing some fairly extensive traveling, which of course we're going to have to put on hold for a while. So we'll kind of see. There's been a number of hobbies that I had to somewhat give up over the years because of evening meetings and things like that. So I'm hoping to kind of re-energize some of those hobbies, and we'll get some traveling done eventually. I'm looking at a couple of volunteer opportunities also. So hopefully I'll keep myself busy.
Maybe the Plan Commission.
There you go.
Is somebody in line to take over landmarks, or maybe you can talk about it, but how are they going to replace you there? It seems impossible.
Oh, I'm sure Scott will find a suitable replacement. That's something that I think, Scott will be doing. I shouldn't be speaking for Scott, but I'm sure there'll be some discussion about responsibilities in different commissions. But through the hiring process, I'm sure they'll find a very capable person to be able to do that stuff. So, but thanks for the comments.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good luck, Pat.
Yeah, good luck. Okay, so that ends discussion items. Are there any future agenda items to talk about?
6 for next time.
6 for next time, all right. And with that, if there's no objection, this meeting is adjourned.
This program was brought to you by a cooperation between Newsworks and the City of Eau Claire. A transcript of this meeting is available for the hearing impaired. It will be available within 7 days of this telecast. Call 715-839-4912 or TDD 715-839-1689 or write Eau Claire City Clerk, P.O. Box 5148, Eau Claire, Wisconsin 54702-5148. Newsworks is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, please contact us via phone at 715-839-5067 or online at valleymediaworks.org.